housekeeping items, and then we'll jump into what you're all here for. So hello and welcome to the Washington Council's first ever, I believe, virtual high school counselor workshop. I am Melody Ferguson. My day job is Associate Dean of Admission at Pacific Lutheran University, which is where I am now. I'm also a proud Federal High School alum, just in case any of you are in the room, and a current mom to two middle schoolers who are starting school today. They should be logging into their first class in a few minutes in the Sumner Bonnie Lake School District. So it's a busy year, and I'm happy to be here. But the reason I am here helping kick off this event and get it started is I am the current president-elect of the Washington Council. I'd like to thank my colleagues at the State Board of Community and Technical Colleges for providing this next statement to get us started, which I will read to you. As a result of COVID-19, we all continue to adapt as best we can to our new ways of working and learning. We're now able to come together in virtual spaces from a myriad of places, all of which represent a sacred home of the First Peoples. We'd like to start the day by giving a land acknowledgement to honor the community of people who first inhabited the areas where we each reside today. We respectfully acknowledge that our virtual community resides on the ancestral lands of the First Peoples, past and present across our state. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Native communities that continue to demonstrate resilience and resistance in the face of efforts to separate them from their land, their culture, and each other. May our time together be spent in recognition and support of our Native brothers and sisters. Thank you. As I reflect on this past spring and summer, I'm trying to think less about what we lost, what is different, and how things have changed, and instead think about what I'm hopeful for. I'm trying hard to see obstacles as opportunities and to think about how I can maintain hope. A day like today, when we are virtually surrounded by a community of people with similar goals, is the best way to continue to move forward. The mission of our volunteer council is that we operate for educational purposes and are organized to assist all Washington State students to access and engage in post-secondary opportunities at its member institutions. That is our common goal, and we are honored to be a part of your community. I would like to thank you for everything you do on behalf of your students. This is a year where you will be providing unprecedented amounts of academic support, yes, but also emotional support as our young people navigate this historical time where they are leading us in many ways as we navigate difficult but necessary conversations. So as we begin this unconventional workshop, I hope you find support, opportunity, community, and strong Wi-Fi. I would like to thank Jana and Megan, who you'll see throughout this presentation, for everything they did to transition this workshop to a virtual environment and to still provide you with all the updates, information, and access to the experts that you need right now. So to give you a sense of what's going to happen today, we will have a series of live presentations from first the Washington Student Achievement Council, followed by OSPI, the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges, the Council of Presidents, and the Independent Colleges of Washington. We'll then take a break as we transition into live Q&A, where you can ask questions of any of those people, as well as many of our college and university representatives who will join us at that time. There will be some closing and housekeeping items, some of which are reminding you that you did receive a YouTube link in your email yesterday with all of the updates from the universities and colleges. So you won't be hearing those today. You'll need to go to YouTube and maybe watch one or two a day, but they're really great. And I think I'm really appreciative of the work that those colleges and universities did to put those together for all of you. They're really meant for counselors, not for students. So they really do have some of those updates that you need. And just a reminder, the handbook is now online, so you should have received information on how to get that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Jana back to the screen to give you kind of next steps as we walk through this process. So thanks for coming.
Perfect. Thank you, Melody. There's been some questions in the chat, and that is a tool for panelists, which you'll see throughout the day, as well as attendees. So we are holding our virtual workshop in a webinar style, so we can't see you, but you can see us through the day. But there is a Q&A function that can be used if you have questions for presenters or panelists that we will ask during the live Q&A around 10:15 as we stay on track. And then if there's other questions, you can add them to the chat and we can help manage and answer your questions. So attendees, you are muted, we can't see you, but you can see us as we turn on videos and our audio. So with that being said, I want to introduce our first presenters from Washington State Achievement Council. So as Christina prepares and turns on her video and shares the screen, please make sure to ask any questions that you may have in the Q&A function on the bottom or in the panelists. All right, I'll turn it over to Christina.
Hello, welcome to Fall Wisher. To me, the true kickoff of fall is doing the line by lines and attending Wisher. So it truly feels like fall now. The rain also helps on the west side here. My name is Christina Winstead. I'm the Assistant Director for Outreach with the Washington Student Achievement Council. And I work with the 12th Year Campaign, helping students take the next steps towards their post-secondary goals with financial aid and admissions. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the Washington Student Achievement Council today. We have some really cool things coming up this year. So who are we? Who's the Washington Student Achievement Council? We're a state agency. We're in Olympia, but right now we are virtual from our homes. And we work to increase educational attainment opportunities in Washington State. We do that through policy and programs. And why is this important? It's because our attainment goals is that we'll have 100% of our Washingtonians aged 25 to 44 to have a high school diploma and 70% to have a post-secondary credential. The reason why this is so important is because we know that post-secondary credential is a pathway to a livable wage job. So I want every single, especially for 12th Year Campaign, I want every senior to have the opportunity to apply for financial aid because I know the difference it made for me. So I know that we do this work in financial aid, but literally someone's 60-second investment of just asking me, do you need help with this application, changed my outlook. And then having someone help me with it was even more so. I know the opportunities this provides for our students. I want them all to have these opportunities. And so to me, this is very personal, and I want to make sure that we are able to do this work, especially in an equity lens. So here's our key takeaways for today. We're gonna talk about college readiness, of course, my favorite topic, financial aid, and we're gonna talk about program updates. We have some amazing resources for you, and then we'll talk about some events and workshops and support for you. So college readiness. So as you can see here for the takeaways, there's a few changes, specifically in the science starting in the fall of 2021. And so this is the minimum college admission standards for this upcoming year. And these are all on our website, so you don't have to memorize this all right now. You can definitely, and I mean, I'm used to at our in-person one where everyone takes out their phone and takes screenshots. You will have access to these, don't worry. And so some changes have happened for the incoming freshmen for the academic years of 2021 and 21-22. The cap for 15% of first-year students that can be admitted for alternative standards has been waived. There are different testing options, and then there have been some changes with SAT, ACT. And so these are really important to convey to students, because I have students that are concerned right now, I know you do as well, about SAT, ACT, and that they think that every school is still requiring some of these exams. And so with test optional opportunities, students need to know about that so that they can really cast a wide net with all of the schools that they're looking at. I don't want them to close any options off. I want them to apply to at least 3 schools so they can find all the things that they love to do and find a pathway for it. Okay, so amazing resources. We know this. The Wisher Handbook, one of the best resources ever. If you are a brand new counselor to this and you're sitting in your office or at home and you're like, oh, the Wisher Handbook. No, you don't understand the magical powers that is the Wisher Handbook. There's pages for each college in there. When I'm working with students, I use it all the time. So you have that as a resource, as well as our website for policy. Okay, let's talk about dual credit. I love dual credit because one of my first jobs in higher ed was working with the program formerly known as Tech Prep. So there's a variety of programs to help your students gather college credits for dual credit that can be either credit by passing a course, so that's going to be the Running Start program or college in the high school, credit by exam, IB, AP, and Cambridge, and then credit by articulation, and that's CTE dual credit. So there's opportunities for all students to be able to earn some dual credit. Let me tell you the benefits of dual credit for a student, especially with CTE dual credit. I've had students tell me, the worst words I can ever hear, which is, I am not college material. Have you ever heard that from a student? It breaks your heart, that little spot right here, you just, ugh. I had a student tell me they weren't college material. They heard the message from family members and they got, at the time, what was called Tech Prep credit. And I was able to show them their transcript and say, you know what, you actually have college credit already. So I think you're college material because you already have a transcript. It's very powerful to show students, especially in technical fields, that they can have post-secondary opportunities that they've already started towards it. So these are all great opportunities for your students to explore. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And we have a comparison chart to help you understand the different programs. And then the dual credit lookup tool has been updated. I love dual credit, and I just really encourage students. It's a great way to start college and see if they, especially exploring and Running Start different classes. It's really been helpful for some students that I've worked with. And so I encourage all students to explore that opportunity. Okay, my favorite topic, you guys know this, it's financial aid. Again, it's because I want every student, these students that we're working with, they're gonna take over the world before we even know it very soon here. And I want them to be in the careers that they love and then they're trained into them with the least amount of debt possible, because I am the most frugal woman in Thurston County, maybe even Western Washington. I'm willing to take challengers at this point. And so I do not want the students to graduate with crippling debt. I want them to use all the financial aid opportunities available to them, not just one. And so we're going to talk about the umbrella of financial aid, the rule of one for financial aid applications, and we'll talk about some state and federal updates. So the financial aid umbrella. Financial aid is 4 main categories, and it is covered by the topic of financial aid, that term. But when we say financial aid, we don't just mean one application or that they're applying for scholarships. It's that they're applying for all of these things. So I'd like students to get familiar with the umbrella. In Washington, yes, we do not use umbrellas. We are more of a hooded jacket state. But for this, we are definitely all about umbrellas. Grants are funds that students can receive. They're income-based. They can be federal, state, or institutional. We also encourage students to apply for scholarships, and those can be from the institutions. Scholarships can also be from individual organizations. There are scholarships for everything. There are scholarships for people who are left-handed. There are zombie survival scholarships. I mean, I know there's a lot out there, and there are times when they don't go awarded, so we want to make sure students are exploring those options. Loans. This is where we want students to look at it and determine what they need, not what they want, because they're going to get a lot in loans and they want to make sure that they are taking out what they can pay back. So loans are also provided when you apply for financial aid. And then work study. I just want to encourage you to talk to your students about work study. The 2 words, work and study, together sound like a bummer to students. But those of you who've had a work study position know how critical they are and how amazing they are in helping you find employment, but also finding what you want to do. And so I encourage students on the financial aid application, if they select no, they will not be considered for work study. If they select I don't know, there are some institutions that will not consider them for work study. So I encourage students, select yes for work study. It's a great opportunity. If you have a positive work study experience you want to share with your students, please do, because I think they see those 2 words together and they're like, ugh, bummer. But we know it's the best. Okay, let's talk about the FAFSA and the WAFSA. So there's 1 application students have to fill out, but our state has 2 applications. So they just need to do one, the FAFSA or the WAFSA. The FAFSA is the federal application for federal student aid, and the WAFSA is the state application for aid. When a student is eligible for the FAFSA, they've completed the federal application and the state application at the same time. When a student applies for the WAFSA, they are just applying for state financial aid. The FAFSA is for students who have social security numbers, students who are from freely associated states like Marshall Islands. The WAFSA is for students who meet state requirements, which we'll talk about in a second, through House Bill 1079, students with expired or unexpired DACA. I encourage, if a student doesn't know which application for financial aid to complete, totally fine. They don't have to be experts. They can just go to the readysetgrad.org/WAFSA page and be assessed for which financial aid application they're supposed to complete. The reason why this is really heavily stressed is because students are geniuses, and they're like, hey, if I do the FAFSA, I can get twice as much money if I do the WAFSA, and that's not the case. I'm frugal, I know this. They want to only apply for one. When they try to apply for two, it just confuses the system. Okay, mark your calendars because it's almost here. I always tell counselors and students, when it comes to financial aid, October 1st is your day. Whenever things start to get pumpkin spice and everything nice out there, that's really your trigger to go get a really delicious latte. And then at the same time, realize financial aid is coming out soon. So October 1st is the application. Students are going to be filling out the 2021-2022 FAFSA or WAFSA, and they're going to be using 2019 taxes. So just a takeaway on the federal programs. So under the FAFSA, the federal programs are the Pell Grant, Federal Work Study, subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and then parent loans. We want to make sure that when you're working with families, parent loans are going to, could be offered to the students' parents. If it's offered to the parents, they want to be mindful of how much they're taking. I've had families who have been eligible for parent loans, and each year they take out the max that they can, but that does accrue over all the years. And I did have a parent that had over $140,000 in parent loans, and their financial situation changed, and they thought they could just get rid of those, that they would just disappear, and that is not the case. So we want parents to be very mindful when they're taking out those loans, being educated on the process. And there's some really cool parent videos coming out of Futures Northwest that we're partnering with them on to help parents understand financial aid and themselves in the process. Okay, so Washington financial aid programs, or what we call the Washington Opportunity Pathways. It consists of the amazing Washington College Grant, College Bound Scholarship, State Work Study, Passport to Careers for Our Youth in Care, and Opportunity Grant. Also, in this grouping, we like to include the WASH Board. The WASH Board is the scholarship warehouse. Students build a profile. It matches them to the scholarships. I affectionately call it the eHarmony of scholarships, except for these scholarships are vetted, so it might be actually better than eHarmony. So the Washington College Grant, why I love it is because it's giving more opportunities to more students to do more things. It's just more. I love that. I want students to have as many opportunities as possible. So the Washington College Grant replaced the State Need Grant. It is a great opportunity for students to be able to apply for funds, especially for families. Like an example, a family of 4 making $50,000 or less is going to have a tuition guarantee. So there's some really cool opportunities for students to be able to work with them early on. There's a calculator on our website where you can see how much a family is going to be getting. So it's like a quick estimate, which is a great tool to show families that they're what they're eligible for. Okay, College Bound Scholarship, another amazing program. The College Bound Scholarship is a commitment of funds to students. They apply in 7th or 8th grade. There's a small population of 9th graders that are covered in this, and it combines with other financial aid to cover tuition, some fees, a small book allowance, and the tuition's at public rates. So if they're going to a private school that accepts the College Bound Scholarship, they're covering the highest tuition amount for like UW for the highest tuition. Okay, so it's a 2-step process. They sign up in middle school. Some 9th graders might be eligible to apply. You will know about those 9th graders, so you don't even have to hunt them down. It's just something that you'll find out about. Youth in care, foster youth, they're automatically enrolled, so they don't have to worry about registering. And they have to meet the income requirements. Step 2, they're going to fulfill that College Bound pledge. They're going to meet those income requirements, and they're going to apply and attend a college within 1 year of graduation. So they can take a gap year, but they can't take a gap and a change year. It has to be, they have to be back enrolled in school within 1 year of graduation. They also need to meet the income eligibility, and they do that by applying for the FAFSA or the WAFSA. So the limited 9th grade sign up, there are some 9th graders, about between 1,000 and 1,500 statewide. We're pre-populating those in the portal. And also for the new FERPL data, they're going to be putting that in late October. Oh, and staff can add addresses now, so WASAC can mail these. So you guys can add your addresses in. Here's the deadline exception. So we have a deadline exception for 10th graders and 9th graders. And so you can see for the existing limited sign up for the 9th graders, that application deadline is going to be the 30th of November. But for the 9th graders that are new for the limited group, that would be for the class of 2024. They have until August 31st of 2021 to complete the application. Okay, when we're talking about serving students and we're talking about undocumented students, we try to make sure we use our terminology so we have common definitions. So when I'm using the term undocumented students in this presentation, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that means we're talking about students who meet 1079 requirements, students who have DACA expired or unexpired, and students who don't meet the state residency requirements. So it's a large umbrella that we use. Not all students prefer undocumented, some prefer dreamers. I encourage you, ask your students when you're working with them and use the terms that they prefer. So the alignment for residency for Washington College Grant and College Bound Scholarship has occurred. It just aligns it with the 1079 requirements of residing in Washington for 36 months before earning that high school diploma. I encourage you when you're working with students, and if they're concerned about this timeline for House Bill 1079 for financial aid, have them do the assessment tool on our website for the WAFSA to see what application and to see if they've met the different amounts of time they're supposed to be in state. So not much has changed there. And then the passport program expansion, this is really cool. So this is expanded opportunities for apprenticeships to students. And so they can utilize funding for career training under approved and pre-approved apprenticeships, which is really cool because I know there are counselors out there who have worked with students who have said, I just want to do an apprenticeship. And so this is going to provide some extra support. Okay, financial aid. So financial aid for 1920, 46% of students didn't even apply for financial aid. I know that these numbers are scary, but also we had a very long year last year. And so I don't want anyone, again, to beat themselves up over numbers. I give you guys this speech every year. This is gonna take all of us to work on helping students complete financial aid, especially in this new virtual world. And so if you're sitting out there beating yourself up over numbers, please pause, don't. I wish I had cake I could just give you and tell you like it's gonna be fine. We're all gonna work together this year to make sure students have opportunities. Not one person is gonna move this needle. We're all gonna work together to do it. But last year we did have a 52% completion rate and a 2% error rate. And that's for FAFSA completion. So we have some really cool things happening this year. Financial Aid Advising Day is one of them. And so Financial Aid Advising Day has requirements to have financial aid activities in your school and providing financial aid information. So schools have to notify students for district information requirements. The Washington College Grant, you have to inform students about the different applications for financial aid and the new financial aid calculator, which is awesome and super easy to use. And those of you who've used the forecaster, the financial aid forecaster for FAFSA, that has gone away. So this new calculator will be very helpful in replacing it. Notifying students about support events to fill out their applications. There's options for districts opting out. The cool thing is the 12th Year Campaign has been doing a lot of this already. And so when I saw that we were going to have a Financial Aid Advising Day bill, I've aligned a lot of the work of the 12th Year Campaign to meet the requirements of this bill. There's a lot of support for you in this. Please don't feel like you are alone. I know that there is extra work to make sure that you're reaching out to all of these students, but we have resources and tools and everything for you. And if you feel like you are struggling with this, you can always make an appointment with me and we can talk about how to serve students in times of COVID for financial aid. I am here to help for this. We have resources in the form of new videos. We have a lot of options through the 12th Year Campaign that you can sign up for. So we have free training. We did a FAFSA, WAFSA line by line already that's recorded that you can watch. We have little tiny amuse-bouche videos, a little tiny snippet instead of a whole video for students. So instead of doing a whole financial aid video, there's like 10 minutes about what financial aid is. And then there's a video, and then there's also a Kahoot quiz and a resource. So there are different modules for students to go through for help with financial aid. We also have the completion portal, which has student level FAFSA specific data for you to see how your students are doing in the completion process. An amazing resource that we have is our student loan advocate. If you know someone who is confused about loans, wants to know more about loans, maybe you want to know more about loans yourself, you're paying your student loans and you are working towards the student loan forgiveness program. If you have questions yourself or your students, please reach out to our student loan advocate for help. They want to make sure everyone understands the process of loans, and there's even a student loan education course that you can take. I think understanding the loan process, especially right now with COVID, there's a lot of questions out there. And so we have this awesome resource for you to refer yourself, your students, everyone to. Okay, events, workshops, and support. So one of the new supports is OtterBot. OtterBot's a text messaging system for seniors. They just text Hi Otter to 360-928-7281, and they can actually text questions 24 hours a day about financial aid. And Otter will go fetch them an answer, and if they stump Otter, they get us. So it's automated, and the great thing is we know students, you know, I don't know about you, but I've been doing one-on-one appointments all summer. Students make their appointments, so I can see when they book their appointment because it buzzes my phone. They make their appointments between 10 o'clock at night and 1 in the morning. So I know that that's when they're awake and functioning the most. Unfortunately, that is not when I'm awake and functioning the most. I'm functioning the absolute least. So them having access to some information about financial aid, and then they can ask more questions of somebody in the morning, I think it really helps to be working with them and the time that they are awake and doing these activities. So then we also have another resource. This is the College Career Compass. This walks students through the interests that they have, the programs that they're interested in, different college programs that leads to those, resources, highlights of campuses. And then we have the action plan. So this is for juniors and seniors to understand how to explore for a career, all the resources available to them, what their next steps are, and their specific COVID-19 guidances. And then we have some Wednesday webinars. The Financial Aid Advising Day webinar is September 23rd, and there's more topics coming up. And then you can register for those for PD Enroller. We did our line by line already, but we'll have other trainings through 12th year. And then we'll have our spring workshops again. So there'll be new financial aid sessions, virtual options, and clock hours are going to be available. And then join us for the Dual Credit Summit. This is going to be a full financial aid series, and they are from 12 to 1, so you can have a wonderful lunch and then learn more about dual credit. And these are right on our website. And then if you don't have one already, if you already have a flash drive, they're being updated this week, so you don't have to do anything. It just automatically updates for you. But if you haven't received our Keys to Success, you can go right on our website and request one, and we will put one in the mail for you in the next week or two. This has all of our resources preloaded. When you plug your key in, it will update any resources we've added. If you register your key, which I highly encourage, we can send you an email and we'll tell you when the keys have been updated so you can put the new information on your key. So they're updatable flash drives. And that is what we have from the Washington Student Achievement Council. I look forward to your questions in the Q&A section.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Cooley, and I'm going to be helping with the MC actions today. So before we move into our next speaker, I do have a couple reminders. We had some aha moments that many of you may not have been on a large webinar feature in Zoom before. So we want to make sure that any of the questions that you have, you're addressing them to the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. I know chat is tempting, but we really want to make sure we're putting those questions in the Q&A because it's going to allow us to make sure that the correct expert is answering them, but also that your question is asked so that others can hear it, because it's probably a beautiful question, and so that others can hear the answers. So please use that Q&A feature. Jana and I are going to go through those. We're going to make sure that your questions get answered. Another thing that is very helpful, if you know that you want Melanie from CBC to answer your specific question, please feel free to say, hey, Melanie at CBC, or just, hey, CBC, and ask that question. That will also help us make sure that the correct folks are getting your questions. Panelists, I know you got your reminder about responding. And then attendees, we are also going to be in the process of checking you in, because I know you all love your glorious clock hours, but it's really hard for us to check you in when your attendee name is listed as just Carol or David. If you could please take some time to rename yourself so that we are able to check you in properly, it would be a fantastic help. So those are my reminders for everyone. And we are going to move right into hearing updates from OSPI and our friend Kim. And so Kim, I am going to let you take it away.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. Somebody let me know. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, while Megan was doing some housekeeping, you took a moment to do a little stretching, maybe even a couple squats or jumping jacks, because as you know from previous presentations, Christina and I always have a lot to share from WASAC and OSPI, and so you get the OSPI roller coaster ride this morning. And hopefully you are strapped back down and ready for the second half of this morning. So I wanted to start off with just really thanking you for making time to be here this morning. Over 300 attendees is fantastic. I wish I was in a room with you and interacting with you personally, but I will take this over nothing. And those of you who don't know me very well may not know this, but I am a Brené Brown fangirl. And one of the things I will be weaving throughout my conversation with you all today is just this idea of how important it is that we stay connected, both us as a community here in school counseling and post-secondary transition community, but also, as you know, with your home community and your student community. It is really important that we remain connected to each other and that we find some ways to be seen and heard and allow our students to do the same and really drive some strength from that connection. This always fills my bucket. I love the Wisher Tour, and so I am hoping to get a bucket boost today. I don't know if it'll be full since I am not in front of you, but hopefully a boost this morning. So wanted to just have you in the chat really quickly. When we are here this morning, of course, most of the focus is going to be on the senior class of 21 and trying to get them transitioned into their colleges of choice. But it is important to take care of you as well. And so when you saw this graphic pop up on the screen, I would love for you to let me know if the first thing that came to your mind, whoops, oh, and it didn't come, did this remind you of a senior or some of your seniors? Did maybe a student who you know is really nervous about this particular process pop up in your mind? Or did this remind you of how you and your staff felt going into this school year? Just type senior or staff in the chat, just out of curiosity, and get you kind of engaged for a second. Was this something that reminded you of yourself and your staff or your seniors? Or you can say both. Thank you for that, Jamie. Appreciate that. All right, so that's kind of what I had guessed, just glancing at what I'm seeing. I saw someone also put parents. Thank you for that. So yeah, a little bit more around staff than maybe our seniors. Maybe they're not aware yet that they are really nervous about this process, but it's a challenging and complicated thing for us to do as school counselors, to guide students through their senior year on a good day, much less when we are trying to do that virtually. So this often, I will be honest and transparent, is my coping strategy, which is to avoid and to wrap myself in my blanket and sit in front of the TV and watch some binge Netflix. And while that certainly does offer me a little bit of respite in the moment, obviously that doesn't make my workload go away. But I wanted to acknowledge that it's a pretty overwhelming experience right now for the entire school education community, P through 20. We're all in this together. And so my hope for you all is that you are finding some of those healthier ways to take care of yourself, that self-care has become part of your routine, that you are making time for it, not only for yourself and your family, but also for the students that you are supporting. This is just one of many graphics and resources that are out and about these days, as we see so many folks coming up with wonderful things to share through this new virtual environment. So I hope you found something on this list that works for you, that gives you that feeling of being restored and ready to tackle the next thing that's coming your way. Because we all know without a full cup on your end, it is much more difficult for you to be able to fill the cups of others. So now that I've either made you feel like you have to pee, or you are desperately wanting that second cup of coffee to keep you focused, I will remind you that I can't see anybody on the screen. So if you need a bio break and you need to take a second now to go grab that second cup of coffee to keep you focused, or if you now really need to go to the bathroom, please go ahead and do that as needed. Misery is optional in these Zoom conversations and connections, because we want you to be able to focus. So in terms of connecting, I wanted to make sure that you know this is me, Kim Rakedahl from OSPI. I am your secondary school counseling supervisor. I have a teammate at OSPI now, Megan LaPalme, who is doing elementary level. So my full focus now is on grades 6 through 12. And my contact information is here for you in case you need to reach out. But again, reminding you, whatever questions you have for me as we go through this, please put those in the Q&A. And I will certainly address those when we get back together later this morning. And then also my email's here for you if you need to reach out to me directly after today's event for some help and support. Jana will have my slide deck. And so as we start diving in, I really hope we can think about this whole context this morning as providing our seniors with hope for their future. It is very uncertain times, and I know my own 2 children, I have a freshman and a junior now, crazily enough, both high school students. They are feeling some anxiety about performing well in this new environment of virtual learning. So it is a daily occurrence in my household that we are practicing our self-care and we are working to reduce anxiety. So I know that that's a thing that is out there. And part of our role as parents and staff is to try to make sure our students know that there is hope for their future, even though things feel very uncertain right now. So thank you, Melody, for doing the land acknowledgement on behalf of everyone here. I will shorten mine just to say that I am coming to you today from the traditional lands of the Squaxin Island tribe here in the Olympia-Tumwater area. And if you ever want to find out where you are sitting and what the native lands are on which you are residing, the links here on this slide will take you to that information. So if you want to start building in a land acknowledgement of your Indigenous students and their families into your presentations, you are welcome to use these links to find out where it is that you are coming to your families from and build that into your presentation. So feel free to steal this if it works for you. And then I also want to just acknowledge in this moment some of the additional trauma that many of us have been facing across the state and across the Pacific Northwest with the wildfires and the just crazily out of control fire season that we are already having this year. So I've linked you to some of the trauma support resources for students who have actually been part of that kind of an event. I hope they're helpful if you seem to have a need in your community. I found this resource to be pretty comprehensive in terms of specifics around wildfire trauma. There's also obviously many other natural disaster events that you can support your students with, but this was specific to what many of us are experiencing right now. And then as part of our equity value here at OSPI, we also want to acknowledge the pain and trauma that our communities of color, and specifically those who identify as Black or African American, have experienced in our country as a result of racism. And we want to continue to center our work at OSPI around leading with racial equity, and in leading with racial equity, elevate lots of the other injustices that many of our student communities experience, but especially those experienced by our students and families of color. So I want to offer just a moment of silence for people to take all of this acknowledgement in, reflect on it for a moment. And if you would like to make a statement or a response in the chat, I welcome that, especially from those of you who identify from communities of color first. would love to hear your acknowledgement of what we are trying to do here through OSPI. And then as we go through our presentation today and anything you see from OSPI, we really are trying to invite accountability and partnership from those who are identify in communities of color to let us know if and when we need to change what we're doing to better reflect our value around equity and anti-racism. So I'm going to set my timer and just give a moment of pause for silence, for reflection, and then if anybody wants to put anything in the chat, that would be great. Okay, now that hopefully everyone has had a chance to take a deep breath, to reflect on some of these acknowledgements made this morning, if there's anything you would like to write in the chat, please feel free to do so. And I will give it just a moment in case anyone would like to make an acknowledgement. I see a couple thank yous, so I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Paulette. Again, inviting that accountability and partnership moving forward. If there's anything we can do better, please let us know. So if you ever hear from OSPI these days, you likely are going to hear some of the messaging that's coming next. We have been asked to be very clear and explicit with everyone that we are connecting with, that our work is truly aligned to the mission, vision, and values of our agency. And really in this context today, what stands out, of course, is all students prepared for post-secondary pathways. That is the context of our conversation and connection this morning. So I'll be highlighting some of that as we go. Our mission is to transform our public education system by closing those opportunity gaps and using equity-based policies and supports that will empower our educators, our families, and communities to really make sure our students are getting the most out of their education. And hopefully as we go through this presentation, you'll hear these values echoed in the words that I speak. First and foremost, the ensuring equity piece. This is really something that OSPI is shifting a little bit around equity and adding additional layers of anti-racism, knowing that there is not that safe space in the middle to be not racist. We really need to be working towards breaking down those barriers, as we'll talk about in a moment. My role is to be here with you in collaboration and service to the work that you do in schools, and I am here to support you, and always going to be coming to you through this lens of continuous improvement, knowing we always can get better at what it is that we are doing to support our students, communities, and families. And as always, my favorite value for OSPI is the focus on the whole child, knowing for certain that there is no career and college readiness without social emotional wellness and academic achievement. So those three realms of school counseling are interconnected, as you all know if you've heard me speak before. And then this is our equity statement. OSPI developed this probably about 2.5 years now. We are getting ready to do a revision in light of the historical movement we are experiencing as a community and as a country right now. So be on the lookout for that. But for now, this is still our many, many words that we tried to use to convey what's truly our mission and our vision, which is to really examine and look at the policies and practices that are in place that are resulting still in disparate outcomes for students, and to actively dismantle those systemic barriers that are in place and really work to replace them with practices and policies that allow all students to have access to the instruction and the support that they need. This is critical when it comes to career and college readiness, especially because we know the outcomes and the data is very clear around our communities of color, not accessing those opportunities as much as our white and Asian students do in a broad sense. So again, being mindful of how we are thinking about the opportunities coming our way this fall, new and old, to be providing those more equitable supports for our students. So today, we've got a few objectives, trying as much as possible to shift our thinking around what we have done in the past to provide those college application and scholarship application and all of those supports to our students when we've been in a building. How do we do that virtually? I won't have all the best answers for you, but I will try to provide what I've been able to find and what I know is out there. Share with you some of the updates around graduation requirements that are going to impact the work that we're doing together. Really making sure that 2019 House Bill 1599 legislation is still getting clear, and also some new legislation from 2020, and of course resources for you. I want to invite you all to really try to stay in the space of the learning zone, if not the growth zone today. What we are used to, our comfort zone around how we do this work, has obviously shifted substantially. And I know it is hard not to be nervous and afraid about how am I going to meet my students' needs, but knowing that together we are here to support you in doing that, and we will do everything we can to get you the resources that we have available so that you can do that work. So keep an open mind as we go forward, because I know the caveat to all of what I'm going to share with you today is that, granted, it is going to be different in this virtual world, but we're here to help. So I want to start with the idea around different kinds of connections that are going to be really critical in this coming year, especially as we are more disconnected, being in our home environments or in our offices and our classrooms by ourselves, trying to interact and connect with our students virtually. So communication is key. And as much as I want to say communicate, 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 I also hope that we'll think about how can we do that systemically and in a way that doesn't flood families' inboxes with emails. As a parent, I can tell you it was overwhelming already the start of this school year with how many emails I received from different teachers for both of my kids. So now that we're into things and starting to systematize that process, it's really important to think about, can I do a weekly? Can I do something that's regular so they know it's coming? And then just thinking about this idea that our teachers, I think, are wrestling with a lot, which is that content's everywhere. And so I hope I've modeled for you sort of this idea that we're focused on connection first. We're focused on making sure we're okay, our kids are okay, before we're diving into the content that they need. But really, how are our staff going to be pulled into this space with us? How can they be reinforcing our messages to students around the parts of the college application and decision-making process that happened this year, and really encouraging students to take advantage of those opportunities. And then thinking about how do we prioritize time for that, because kids have dreams, they really do, and they have goals. But without action and without time to break those steps into a plan and work on them, it's going to be harder for them to reach those goals. So my district, where my kids are, every morning, 20 minutes of career and college readiness or social emotional learning has been built into our schedule. Every Wednesday, they have a live synchronous opportunity to connect around their high school and beyond plan. It's really critical that we've built that time into our schedule and that we are utilizing our staff and helping our students engage in those spaces so that they have the opportunity to get the help that they need. And then I've even seen on some of the Facebook blogs I'm on for high school and middle school counseling, some counselors, and I never know what state they're from, going, hey, what are y'all doing? I don't have anything to do, which just absolutely blows my mind. I don't know if any of you are in that same boat of feeling like I don't have a whole lot to do yet because school's just getting started and the, scheduling change process is basically done. So if I could offer a suggestion, if you haven't already thought about it, is connecting with every senior here to start. Ideally, this would be something that would, once you've got the freshmen and the new kiddos started and connected, seniors should be next. How do we connect with every single one and confirm what's in your high school and beyond plan? What help and supports do you need as we go through this process? I think that that's a key piece, because we know it is so clear that every student needs that champion, that person that's there to support them. You're often that person. But in this space, with the way in which we are trying to do this work virtually, it may take all hands on deck and all staff in those roles to be able to reach every student and to be able to get that connection made for them back to the school system after such a long extended break from spring. So I would love just really quickly a number in the chat from 1 to 5, 1 being I'm brand new and I just heard about graduation pathways, to 5 being I know all 8 of them by heart and I've got it down. Please put a number of 1 to 5 in the chat for me really quickly so I can get a gauge. This is my straw poll of being able to kind of see where we're at since this new legislation passed in 2019. I saw a 7. Whoever that was, please contact me and tell me how you're going to teach my next presentation. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of 3s and 4s. That's good. That makes me feel like we're getting this. It's coming along. So what I wanted to share with you today, and thank you for that straw poll. I know that what you know may not always match what's available. And so I appreciate that, Karen, for addressing that particular piece of this. I just wanted to kind of get a gauge of where y'all are at with your understanding of them to know how much detail to put here. But I'm going to put in the chat for you the link that is currently on the page that you are seeing. We just pushed out on Monday through a newsflash our new graduation pathways toolkit for the class of 2021. It is posted on the page that I just linked you to in the chat. It is also linked here on this slide. So when you get this deck, you can go back and go to any of these links. They're all live for you. And in that graduation pathways toolkit, everything's updated with both 2019's legislation from 1599 and 2020's legislation from 6141 and the new financial aid advising day that you heard Christina talk about. And then we updated the 1-pager so that it says class of 21 on it. It's just a nice, easy reference for your families, for your students, for your staff of what those resources or what those pathways are, excuse me, and what it takes to meet them. A few updates for you. The CTE course sequence graduation pathway, that list of approved pathways from local districts who have gone outside of program area. So obviously they can make those approvals in-house in district if it's 2 or more classes within the same program area for CTE. But if they cross over any of the 6 program areas for their sequence, they do have to get OSPI approval. So that list is here. It is growing, and any district can go into that list and see another district's work and basically say, we're going to do that and not have to go through the approval process. So I encourage you to make sure your CTE directors are looking at that and you're having conversations about how to continue building those options based on what you're seeing maybe other districts putting together. That might help. The ASVAB score is still 31 for this year. So the State Board of Ed did update. They will do that by September 1st of every year. So know that it is still 31. So no changes there. But remember that if any of your students are looking to use the ASVAB as a graduation pathway because they're interested in a career path that might be prepared for through military enlistment, that they should be taking that ASVAB in junior or senior year in order to have that score actually count. If you're continuing to use the ASVAB as a career exploration tool for 10th graders, that's great. Just remember those students who actually put this as their post-high school plan will need to retake if they actually move to enlist in the military, so they have a score from junior or senior year. Just a reminder for the class of 21, we do still have the Certificate of Individual Achievement waiver or pathway, excuse me, as an option for our students with disabilities. That is supposed to sunset this year, but it is still there. It is also, unfortunately, no longer available that the expedited assessment appeal waiver be available. So know that that is our current reality, that it will take legislative change for that to be any different. And as you all know, the legislature doesn't come to town until January. So we need to operate as if there is no EAA waiver and be looking for as many ways as we can to try to help students get through those pathways. Know that as of right now, the SBAC we are moving forward as if it is going to happen. We applied for a waiver but did not receive it from the federal government. So as far as we know, we will be giving that this spring. And obviously SAT, ACT, AP exams, some of those other things have been happening in different ways. So just know, obviously, that things may change, but right now this is our current reality. There is an updated Running Start form for those of you who haven't seen that yet, that the digital signature was a bit of an issue initially, but they did fix that. And know that they are working, they being OSPI and our higher ed partners, we are working on some guidance around the changes in bell schedules causing some difficulty with the Running Start enrollment and the 1.2 FTE. Remember that year-long average FTE still has to maintain that 1.2. So if your fall bell schedule change is causing a bit of an overlap for this fall, which is being allowed, that may impact spring quarter. So just be on the lookout for that guidance once they've got it done, because it will be important for us to pay attention to that. And then the dual credit and post-secondary planning guidance. This is a document, one of many guidance documents that OSPI has published and sent out. Again, everything that you see on the page that's underlined on your screen, those are all live links. So if you didn't catch in the chat, you can scroll up in the chat to get the graduation page I linked you to for this. Or when you get the slide deck, go in, and any of these things that I'm talking about here are going to take you to the places where they're posted. But really good, important guidance update for dual credit and post-secondary planning that was a very collaborative effort between K-12 and higher ed and many of the folks on the call today. So I encourage you to go take a look at that as you're gearing up for your college admissions process with your students. All right. Deep breath, right? Okay, you saw this from Christina, so I won't belabor that. There are some opportunities coming up, some seminars for dual credit opportunities. What I wanted to point you to on my slide is in the upper right-hand corner, I linked you to Jason Boatwright. He is OSPI's program supervisor for dual credit. And he's also creating a SharePoint site that he is going to use as an open resource for anyone who asks to have access. So his email is on this screen. If you want to have access to that, you are welcome to email him and ask. It hasn't quite gone live yet. If you register for any of the series, you will also get access to that SharePoint site from registering for the dual credit workshops that are happening this fall. So sorry, I keep clicking off my screen. There we go. Oh, and just to let you know, this link here, it will take you directly to the registration for this series. It'll register you for all of them, but you may not be able to make them all, and that's okay. Just know you'll get registered for them all. So just to backwards track a little bit, confirm our understanding of what came at you this time last year as brand new and a big, huge blast, which was $15.99. Obviously, we have added a few things in this right-hand column to the high school and beyond plan from that legislation. One of the biggest new required component pieces was all the information about federal and state financial aid. And all of that is in the Graduation Pathways Toolkit. It is now also on the High School and Beyond Plan template, which I'll share with you in a minute. But know that we're really encouraging you to think about that Financial Aid Advising Day, which was new from Senate Bill 6141, and Christina talked about that. Doing these things in conjunction with each other, kind of using that Financial Aid Advising Day as a chance to do that check on your seniors' high school and beyond plans to make sure all their financial aid information is in place as much as they know up to this point would be a great use of kind of crossing over these two requirements. And then we'll talk in a minute about students with IEPs getting similar supports for high school and beyond planning. And then obviously we know that that 10th grade update last year that was a new requirement Of course, there weren't SBA scores to use to inform those junior year classes, but hopefully all of those 10th grade connections still happened with some intentionality about looking at that junior year course sequence. And a reminder that by next fall, so by this time next year, every district needs to have an academic acceleration policy in place, and it needs to be in alignment with high school and beyond plans. So if your district hasn't adopted that yet, this is something you could have a voice at the table with this next year as the school counseling team or school counselor to inform that policy. There is a Model 1 already out, but really that link with high school and beyond plan is super important and key so that students have the option to make sure that they are being placed into those next most rigorous courses with intentionality around their goals and not just because it's the next class. So we did update the high school and beyond plan template. And again, I've linked that here. It is also the page that I put in the chat. So if you scroll up in your chat, you'll see that link. It's just the graduation page on OSPI's website. So if you also put graduation in our search box, you'll get there. This template has been updated for all of the 1599 and 6141 requirements. It has a whole new page in it for financial aid options. I just did a screenshot of that for you so you can see that we have also made this a writable document. So your students can do this essentially online and upload it to whatever high school and beyond plan program you may use. You could upload it to a Google Classroom if you've got advisory, or if you're in charge of certain seniors, maybe create a Google Classroom for them so that you can use the uploadable form and have that be a digital copy. Again, the links are in the slide deck. You will see them on the deck. I can't talk and post all the links at the same time. I don't have a second facilitator to do that for me, so I apologize for that. But all of this is linked on the slide deck, so you'll be able to get that when you go back to this. Wanted to just give you a little bit of a side-by-side, this idea about an IEP transition plan aligning with a high school and beyond plan. Here's how you can see how there's a lot of similarity and some significant timing differences to these two pieces of guidance for different students. So I wanted to give you just sort of that snapshot look about who might be your staff member, for example, who's helping to facilitate that IEP transition plan, who now maybe needs to be working more connected with the general ed staff to ensure the connection of these two processes. And then I want to highlight for you at the bottom the links to all the resources that OSPI Special Services Department has developed to help with this process. There are really concrete best practices, samples of what it can look like, checklists for you to use, lots of things to help with that alignment of IEP transition plans with high school and beyond plans, so that all of our students are getting those equitable services from staff and getting the same guidance and support as their general ed peers. So again, I apologize I didn't have a second facilitator to post all these links in the chat for you. I will try to work on that for Thursday, but they are in this slide deck. And then new for this year is the expectation that online high school and beyond plans are accessible to students. Please know that this is not a mandate that school districts have to actually require students to have an online high school and beyond plan, but they do have to have access to one. This is the chart from the bulletin we sent out last spring of the 10 vendors that our market research led to us doing analysis with. And you can see how they are falling in terms of their current alignment with the graduation requirements that are in statute for us. And then what they are saying they will be able to do in terms of their alignment by spring of 2021. I will let you know that for most of them, the one thing that's keeping them from 100% is the portability piece, that alignment from one vendor to the next of how they code the information, so that if a student transfers districts and they came from Zello and they go to Naviance, that can come on a flash drive with them and be downloaded into that next vendor. That is something that's still going to take some more work It wasn't mandated, so they've tried, but it is not altogether there. And so when you see a lack of 100% alignment, that is most often the reason why. Know also that the High School and Beyond Plan template that I just shared with you, which is a document you can print for those students who need paper copies, or you can use as that writable document, you can pick and choose pieces off of that to just use as a single document to upload to any of your online platforms that maybe are missing a piece of the puzzle for what needs to be done in that High School and Beyond Plan. We also are going to start talking a little bit about some of the other ways that we can be connecting with our students this year in this virtual world. And it's some of the same ways we would have done it in our buildings, but now we've got to be a little bit creative about how we do that. And so when we talk about data connections, you guys have heard me say this before, those High School and Beyond plans are key pieces of our power to engage kids as school counselors. And so when we now know, hey, we have a virtual college tour coming up, and of course I had to put the Cougar one on there because you guys know I'm a diehard Coug. Going into those High School and Beyond plans and looking at all the students who've saved WSU as a college of interest, sending them an email, sending them a text, whatever your messaging platform is, to say, hey, this is an event that's coming up. Here's the registration link. I hope you'll do this because I see you've got this school saved in your High School and Beyond plan. It might help you to know what it'd be like to be on campus since we can't go visit in person. And we likely aren't going to have those reps coming to our buildings this year, unfortunately. Another way to do that is with scholarships. As scholarship season heats up and students are looking for ways to pay for their post-secondary goals. Again, as you get that information, looking for students' High School and Beyond plans, is it a scholarship that seems to fit either where they want to go or what they might want to do for a career? Send them that information via email, via text, via whatever your messaging system is, to say, hey, here's this scholarship, here's the application, contact me via Calendly, set up an appointment if you want, and then we'll get going and help you. And then family connections, of course, are key. I wanted to give you this particular resource. It is linked. If you click on it, all these things are linked for you, but it has a shared Google Sheet that you could maybe use as a tracking form if you haven't already set that up for your family connections. I wanted to direct you towards Gear Up. WASAC's Gear Up staff, Beth Kelly, is amazing. She's updated all her family newsletter templates for you, and they're all grade levels, whole slew of them once a month for seniors. And then Ready Wa is also another partner who does a lot around High School and Beyond planning. They have some resources for families on how to engage students in talking about their future. This may be still, even senior year, a good resource for families to be able to open up some of those conversations. Obviously, college connections are key, and our college partners have always been amazing when I was in school counseling realm like you all, with providing those supports to students in the local area, even if they weren't necessarily going there. But they should be some of our partners for Financial Aid Advising Day, wherever we can make that happen in a way that is fitting folks' schedules. How they can help with financial aid in addition to WASAC, who's going to be your key agency for that support. Obviously, there's scholarships, getting your students connected to that. And then in this virtual world, especially for our first gen and struggling kiddos, we might need to be more intentional about directly connecting students to those colleges, whether it's application support, the admissions information, maybe they need connections to the diversity, disability, advising services offices, housing and basic needs, lots of ways we can help connect them to their colleges of interest. And then for you, I just really encourage you on the other end of things to keep copies of everything that you're doing for them, track the dates of when you need to send stuff in, and if needed, you've got those copies if something gets missed. And then following up with those college admission folks for those students we know need that extra little bit of help are going to be key parts of the process for you in this virtual world. And then wherever possible, I know some of you, your community connections are minimal because your community consists of maybe one traffic light, if not any. So where can you find, nearby community supports for any local businesses, banks, credit unions who might be able to support students in that financial aid process in addition to our WASAC resources. Maybe you have community-based organizations or our college access providers that are working with your school who can provide those mentors and tutors, maybe even those career speakers to inspire students who are still unsure of what they want to do to think about what they might want to do. Scholarships, awards, recognition, and then that basic need piece. We've got lots of students who we know are going to be needing additional help moving into that transition. And then I just invite you to think about these questions. How might we keep equity at the center? What might we need to change this year to really reach out to those students who have historically been marginalized and even more so now through connectivity issues are having trouble getting connected to us? How can we use that high school and beyond plan to really connect and increase engagement, improve accessibility gaps for our kids? And then looking at any policies, procedures such as academic acceleration, which is going to be newly required next year, how can we make sure that that's an equitable policy in our district? So I've got a few more resources for you, and Jana's given me my 1-minute warning. So I want you to know these are some of the things I was able to find, that some of them are related to the college admissions process. Some of them are more around race, equity, or social emotional wellness, trying to get you connected to virtual counseling resources. I'll be honest, there is not a lot out there of typical college access resources that have been adapted to this online environment, at least not that I could find. So I'm hoping some of these things that I've linked here can be adapted for you, and that it won't be too hard to think of ways to shift this into a virtual environment and to continue engaging parents and students in this process with you. And then, as you already heard, the OSPI WASAC Wednesday webinar coming up on September 23rd. This is a link to that PD Enroller registration. If you want to go to that link directly, it's on your screen here. Also, our Gate Equity webinars every month. We have 2 of them. It's the second Wednesday of the month on most months. We've done attendance and engagement and school climate so far. October is about multi-tiered systems of support and change management. And then this slide, if you want to go back and look, will tell you what all the topics are coming up for the year. And then last but not least, I hope you will stay connected with OSPI. There's a couple places where you can get our information. One is the OSSI newsletter. It's in the email sign up, and you have to go into the Gov Delivery and look for the Office of System and School Improvement newsletter to get that information. That's where we send out our monthly resources. And then our YouTube channel, all of our webinars will be posted there. Tons of information that you can go through on YouTube at your own leisure. So last but not least, let me know how I can help you. That's what I'm here for. I want to be your support system at OSPI, and just want to acknowledge that everything we are doing together is a challenge. There's not an easy button this year, but I hope that you are building up strength from every time you succeed in meeting another challenge, knowing that we can do hard things together, and that we are here to help you. So I hope that that gives you some of the updates for this year, and I look forward to seeing you in the Q&A later.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate your update and all the information that you provided. I will turn it over to my colleagues at State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. Just a quick reminder as well, as Katie is getting set up, that the workshop is being recorded and it will be shared out to each of you afterwards, as well as making sure to use the Q&A function below. We'll answer those questions later on today. And please make time to take breaks, grab more water, coffee, tea, whatever is needed as we continue on with our presentations today. So I will turn it over to Katie for the update.
Okay. I hope everybody's seeing the full screen here. So good morning, everybody. My name is Ha Wen, she, her, hers, and I'm a policy associate in the Ed Division for the State Board for Community Tech Colleges, which I lovingly refer to as the mothership to the 34 colleges across our state. Thank you for the space today with all of you, and I know I speak on behalf of my colleagues when I say we are thrilled to be here with you, and I'd like to give a moment for Katie to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Ha. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there with you all in person. This is, as Kim said, this is just this kickoff to fall, and it's just not the same. But hopefully we'll be back in live and in color next year. So I work in the communications office at the State Board and very closely with Ha. So we're very happy to be here with you today and talking about our 34 community and technical colleges.
Great. So much like OSPI, we'd like to take a minute to set the context in which we go about our work at the State Board. Many of us here in the Zoom room and around the world have been heartbroken over the horrific acts of violence on our Black brothers and sisters amidst a global health crisis and economic depression that has disproportionately attacked our Black, Brown, and Native communities and increased the anti-Asian sentiment of our refugee and immigrant populations. It's a trifecta of global proportions in which our communities of color will struggle to recover from for years to come. But it has also increased our system's urgency to take bold action steps in supporting our students of color and their families. In the last year, SBCTC worked extensively on building a new system vision to help guide our agency and colleges. It is bold, reflective, and responsive to the needs of our communities and focused on dismantling systemic racism as it is rooted throughout our established ways of doing. I'd like to share that vision with all of you to give you a sense of our commitment and who we strive to be as a system. Leading with racial equity, our colleges maximize student potential and transform lives within a culture of belonging that advances racial, social, and economic justice in service to our diverse communities.
And I'd like to take a moment to talk about COVID-19 and our college's responses to COVID-19. So we at the State Board, as well as the entire college system, is working very closely with the governor's office, as well as local health departments to make sure that all of our students and faculty and staff are working in a safe environment. We've quickly, as everyone has quickly adopted curriculum to be online as much as possible. But we are, like many others, we are offering classes that are in person for labs and clinicals. So again, we are very committed to the health and safety of everyone who attends our colleges, and we're doing our best with curriculum and in student services and student support. So we're going to take a moment just to talk about what the class of 2018 did when they graduated from high school. And of the people who went on to college in higher education, 42% of those students went on to a community or technical college. And then the next largest percentage, 33%, went to an in-state public four-year institution. So as you can see, the community and technical college system is a big player in our education beyond high school. So 356,000 students are enrolled in our community and technical college system across our state. And as the slide earlier showed, we have 34 colleges around the state, 29 community colleges, and 5 technical colleges. We have a very diverse student population, which we are very proud of. 47% of our students are full-time students, and 58% are women, 48% are students of color. And this slide, looks like it's kind of cut off on the bottom there, so I apologize, at least on my screen. So the majority of our students are here at our colleges either for workforce education or for transfer. So the 48%, that blue, is workforce education. And then the academic transfer, students who have indicated that they want to transfer their credits to a four-year institution after they've completed their associate's degree or completed their time at our colleges. And then the green is students who are enrolled in basic education. And again, like I said, our colleges are extremely diverse, and we are very proud of that. And 48% of students are students of color. That I do see that those numbers don't add up to 100%. That's because students identify in more than one race. So we're going to talk a minute about what does our colleges are open admission. So what does that actually mean? So let's talk about that for just a minute. So the first myth that we have is that it's okay if a student does poorly in high school. That's okay. Can you mind clicking next, thank you. So the classes are actually easier in a community or technical college, and that's actually a big myth that we need to dispel. So all open admission, open access means is that colleges offer an open door for anyone who wants to attend. We understand that colleges and education beyond high school is critical for students and in their long-term careers and in the support of their families. So we do want as many students to attend a post education beyond high school as we possibly can. And then another myth we need to dispel is that students can enroll in any quarter. And while yes, we are open admission and open door, that does not mean that classes are necessarily available. They do fill up. And then also we have programs like nursing that are cohort based. And so what that means is, I'm sure many of you know, is that nursing, for example, might start in fall quarter. So if a student enrolls in winter quarter, they're going to need to wait until the next fall to actually begin their program. And then the final myth we need to discuss is that community and technical colleges won't prepare me for transfer to a four-year university. And in fact, 39% of bachelor's degree holders in the state started at a community or technical college. And we in Washington are one of the highest performing states in terms of transfer student success rate for those students obtaining a bachelor's degree. So our colleges have many placement options for students. So not only do we have just placement options like Alex and AccuPlacer, we have colleges will also look at AP, IB, Cambridge courses. They will look at the Smarter Balanced Assessment as well as high school transcripts. So the reason we want to do that is because we want to make sure students are in the appropriate class for them. And as a result, they get the most out of their classes. So just a brief mention about Smarter Balanced. If students score 3 or 4 on their math or English Smarter Balanced, and there's the B or better, there's a few other little caveats for math, they automatically place into college level math. Now that does not mean that they place into the necessarily appropriate level for them. If they place into a higher level math or English, they would need to take additional assessment measures to be able to show that they can qualify for those particular classes. And for Bridge to College, these are classes that if the student scores below college ready, so below that 3 or 4 on the Smarter Balanced Assessment, they can take a class their senior year if available, that if they get a B or better in those classes, that they will qualify for those college level math and English. So just a moment on dual credit. We have several dual credit options like Running Start in college and the high school. Running Start is far and away our largest dual credit program. We're very proud of it, and it continues to grow. So Running Start is taken at a college campus, and college and the high school is taken at a high school campus. Career and technical education is also taken at a campus. That was formerly known as Tech Prep, and it's tuition free. So that's a great option for a lot of students as well. WASAC and OSPI mentioned this in their presentation, but take a look at that Washington Dual Credit Summit coming up. And I'll turn it over to Ha.
Great, thank you, Katie. So guided pathways. As a college system, we've been committed to being open access institutions, much like Katie just mentioned. But now our focus is really including completion. So how do we get our students not just through the front doors of the institution, but to the graduation stage? And in particular, closing equity gaps all along the way for our students of color and other minoritized groups in these areas. So our colleges have been implementing a broad-scale initiative called Guided Pathways. It's a research-based student reform effort that requires that we make critical changes to the way we've been serving students, because much of what we're seeing is that we've been historically doing it not so well. So thanks to the 2019 legislature, the community tech college system now has funding to implement this mass redesign effort called Guided Pathways at all 34 community and tech colleges. There's some key elements to the Guided Pathways Initiative. There's 4 key components. You'll see them right there on the screen. The first is to create curricular pathways to get students to and through. The next is to help students choose and get on their pathway. Third is to stay on that pathway, and then to ensure that learning is happening with intentional outcomes. Embedded within that, and Washington as a leader in this effort, is really ensuring that there's some critical elements of an equity-minded design. And you'll see those little spools at the bottom there that reflect those 5 critical elements that make up what we mean by equity-minded design. So with that, it's refers to the perspective exhibited by educators who call attention to patterns of inequity in all student outcomes. And it's really taking the mirror and putting it on ourselves. Historically, we've talked about college isn't for everyone, or this student is not college ready. Now it's taking the mirror and putting it on ourselves as a system whole and as colleges, and taking responsibility for the way we have structured and ensured inequitable outcomes for our students of color. So really having a real philosophical shift and requiring that we are race conscious and aware of the historical and social context of the exclusionary practices in American higher ed. We know undeniably that there have been equity gaps for our low-income students of color, from getting to the door of our colleges, getting funding to get through to that, and then attaining a high-value credential and degree. So that's the pinnacle pieces that we focus on as a college system at each of our colleges. And we have to do that if we're going to do a full-scale guided pathways redesign to implement an equity-minded elements within that, because it will impact each and every student that comes through our doors. So just an example of one of the key elements is a focus on that pathway, curricular pathway. So colleges have been looking at, and this is an example from Lake Washington Tech, colleges have been looking at creating what we call degree maps or program maps, and those are making it so it's predictable and clear for students when they come to our colleges. Makes it easier for colleges to block schedule courses in the same program, and then for students to schedule life outside of college, so work and family obligations, and then especially for students who are part-time students and have those responsibilities. So really clear, concise, articulated learning outcomes with pathways that lead to high-value credentials and degrees. So some degree options we offer are academic transfer, prof tech, or professional technical, applied bachelor degrees, and apprenticeship. Just talk a little bit about that, the 4 in the upcoming slides. But academic transfer is to a student who's preparing to transfer to university. Professional tech is getting training and skills to prepare for work. Bachelor's degrees, applied bachelor's degree builds on our prof tech associate degrees. And then of course, apprenticeships, earning while you learn. So some transfer stats within that course option. Almost 136,000 students have enrolled. All 6 public baccalaureate institutions have ways for students who earn their associate degree with us to transfer with a reverse transfer agreement. And then also reflectively that community tech college transfer students have done just as well as individuals who have gone straight into their freshman year at a 4-year. And our prof tech stats here, quite a few number of students enrolled as well. A lot of diversity amongst those programs. 58% are women, 42% of students of color, and really designed to get a student into the workforce as quickly as possible. Applied bachelor programs, there you'll see we've got plenty of students programs for students to choose from, and of course building on our prof tech associate degrees. And lastly, apprenticeships and career-connected learning. So combining the related supplemental instruction with on-the-job training supervised by journey-level craft person. I want to speak really quickly to some of our innovative practices. Nationally, we're known for our IBUS model here in Washington State. It is an integrated basic education skills training. It's a recognized team teaching model. Has 2 teachers in the classroom. One teaches basic ed classes and the other teaches content, and they work together as a team. Quickly teaches students to literacy work and college readiness skills so they can move through school and into living wage jobs faster. It's also integrated into a number of different forms. The IDEA program is another innovative practice that Washington State's community tech colleges have led point on. This is integrated learning where English is taught in tandem with college and career skills. Students quickly learn skills relevant to their lives and careers. It's a flip model. They complete online models to learn and then practice and develop knowledge of concepts before actually coming to class. And then they use the classroom time to apply what they've learned. And then some alternative high school options, high school plus, or I'm sorry, high school equivalency classes, of course, are prepare. This is what we traditionally have had for quite some time. Classes prepare students for the 4-part GED test. High school plus is for adult learners 18 and older who don't have a high school diploma or GED. It's comprehensive, it's competency-based, and it's tailored to adult learning styles. And it's designed to move adults into IBEST programs and further training and education. So students who demonstrate competency in reading, writing, math, in the context of science, history, government, will be able to secure their high school degree. And then our community tech colleges actually issue the high school diploma. And tuition costs for the upcoming 2020-2021 school year. You'll see there. Upper division tuition is caps at $67.81 for a full-time, totaling about $14,000 for students living with their parents, $21,000 for students living on their own. And then, of course, financial aid. Access to funding we know is critical to helping students stay in school. Please, please, please. I loved how, I believe it was Christina early on said, October 1, think pumpkin spice latte and think applying for financial aid. That'll stick with me forever now. But please encourage your students to apply for financial aid as early as possible after October 1. And then we'd be remiss not to talk about the Washington College Grant, the newly nationally recognized grant, formerly the State Need Grant, makes education and training beyond high school affordable, more affordable program. The program is also expanded to provide support for apprenticeships as well. So an eligible student from a family of 4 making around $50,000 or less per year would receive a full amount. And then following that, partial grants are available for families making up to a median family income around $97,000 a year. And lastly, one of the really critical components, much like in high school, staying engaged as a student and having a community can help students feel like they belong, which is so important to their success in college. Each college has a different mix of opportunities to get involved and meet people. Students should be sure to visit each college to get a sense of what to expect. So some examples to get involved is student government, the 2-year honor society, Phi Theta Kappa, a myriad of clubs and programs and events. A large emergence of affinity groups that have surfaced on the campuses based on identity, study abroad programs, recreational facilities, and athletic programs. So a number of opportunities for students to stay engaged. So thank you so much for being a great source of information for your students. Our community and tech colleges are a wonderful next step to reaching their dreams after high school. It's our forte and the hallmark of what we do. So thank you for the work you do for your students, and we're excited to meet them.
Excellent. Thank you so much to our State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. I'm missing you guys so much. Katie and I have lots of fun in the chats. It's fun. So folks, I'm going to encourage everyone to just like stretch. I was going to have everyone do squats, but my dog is starting to have her morning party time. And if I stand up, she is going to join the meeting, if you will. So our next speaker is from the Council of Presidents, and it's our friend Julie. So Julie, are you ready to take it away? I think there she is. All right, folks, here's Julie.
Great. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Julie Garver. I'm the Director of Policy with Academic Affairs. This meeting is a milestone. It is the first time since March that I have put on pants that are not an elastic waist. So, actually put some paint on my face. So this is kind of feeling a little more professional. So excited to walk you through what you can kind of expect from our sector, talk to you a little bit about our sector, and then engage in how we can collaborate and continue to partner to support Washington students here in the state. So a little bit about the Council of Presidents. We go by the acronym COP. So the Council of Presidents represents your Washington public four-year universities and college. And we have a lot of amazing institutions, post-secondary institutions here in the state of Washington. So just to be really clear about who we work with and represent, it includes Eastern Washington University, Central Washington University, Evergreen, UW, WSU, and Western Washington University. And this of course includes all of our other campuses, UW Tacoma and Bothell, W2 Tri-Cities, Everett, the Spokane collaboration, Tri-Cities, Vancouver, and you can really see that we are everywhere. We have really worked to make sure that we are intimate parts of our communities and our state. So we both have a statewide focus with the research and teaching and learning that we do across our campuses, and then also a local focus in terms to make sure that we can meet state and community needs that differ. As we know, Washington is a varying state with a variety of different needs across our state. I think echoing of many of what my colleagues have said to you, we want to say thank you so much. We know that this has been, continues to be a challenging year, 2020, and that we know that this has been particularly challenging and adding to the stress and pressures for our students and families, our teachers, principals, and our other colleagues at K-12. I really wanted to let you know that this is a shared historical moment, that our institutions are facing many of the same questions and policies and practices that you are, in terms of how to reduce barriers for students, how to engage them in remote learning, and how to kind of live in this new normal. At the same time, many of our faculty and colleagues and students themselves also are directly engaged with K-12 either through their families or through students. So we are also living and experiencing what you are experiencing as parents and families. And so we really want to appreciate the work you are. Thank you as being colleagues for us, and let you know that we are here to partner with you and support you and your students in whatever way we can do it. So thank you again for all you have done and continue to do during this time. What I'm going to do is kind of talk to you about kind of three things. One, I think is the burning question on everybody's mind is about what to expect. So around admissions for public four-year institutions, talk to you a little bit about our sector, and then a few minor updates since we were gathered last fall. So what to expect? I want to be really clear. Washington's public four-year institutions want Washington students. We want Washington students to stay here in Washington and go to school. We want to grow our own. And we are heavily invested, obviously, in having those students come to one of our institutions. But we work closely with our incredible partners at the community technical colleges and the independent nonprofit colleges represented by ICW. And this is an amazing, robust, and range of opportunities for Washington students that sometimes I don't think they fully appreciate. And we really hope to continue to work with counselors in K-12 to really articulate the robust and multiple opportunities that students have to go to any one of our institutions. As I said, I do have a bias towards Washington's public four-year institutions, but the most important thing for us is that we're growing our own, and that we are encouraging students to achieve their own educational goals and the credentials that they'll need for the 21st century. And if that means they go to one of our quality partners in a different sector, or they come to us, we think it's really important. And we are joining in hands with our community technical college partners and ICW to ensure that students know that they are wanted, and that we are striving to ensure that our curriculum, our teaching, our research, our engagement in student life is meeting not only their needs, their families' needs, but also the needs that they will need once they leave one of our institutions with a degree. We would encourage you to send and share this video. It's a joint video that really talks about this message and really emphasizes the backbone of all of our institutions, which is our students. So as you know, our admissions folks are into fall 2021 fall admissions. I want to just make a small note to know that if there are students who, for whatever reason, didn't apply but are looking to apply for winter or spring, that they can engage with our institutions, that we do accept applications. And we have an FAQ for our sector that we are in the process of updating that will highlight those deadlines and those rules. So keep your eye open for that. In regard to fall 2021 admissions, to be quite honest, it doesn't look a whole lot different than the flexibilities being incorporated for this fall. So a couple of these things is we're continuing to integrate flexibility into our admissions processes. So Washington's public four-year institutions, and I put a link in the Q&A, students must meet minimum admission requirements. We have worked closely with our partners at WASAC to allow our institutions to have flexibility to remove some caps and stuff around those things. So you want to engage with your colleges and universities to find out how they are utilizing them on the campus. In addition, for fall 2021, similar to fall 2020, we suspended for admissions purposes the SAT and ACT exam. So students do not need to take those. If they don't take them, it will not impact their admission decision. If they do take them, it will not impact their admission decision. So we're letting students know that that's not necessary. The other thing is that we know students will be coming to us having gone through the spring in 2020. And so there is not a negative effect for a P grade and for high school coursework. We do want students to be considerate of if they are taking Running Start or College in the High School, which is college level work, about the potential impacts of a P grade. And again, those are outlined in our FAQ and in additional documents we have on the COP COVID website. Encourage you to look at those websites, and the links are further in the presentation as well. And the link right here. I'm pointing to my screen, but you can't see me. So anyhow, I've pointed. It's right there. Can I do that? Oh yeah, okay. So in planning for the future, we are taking it as a sector quarter by quarter. As we do this, we're using some guidance across our sector. Our utmost importance is the safety and health of our students, faculty, and staff. And that's why you'll see that the majority of our coursework for fall will be provided through remote learning. The other thing that's really important to note is that students continue to see vital support for their services. A reminder that unlike K-12, we never closed. And we have transitioned all of our services to remote learning. So students are still getting counseling, academic advising, health clubs and stuff are finding new ways to engage remotely. They're getting this full experience. Everything's been moved remote, and we have tried to really work to highlight contacts and websites so students know to go where they have direct questions. In addition, our institutions are continuing to meet the technical needs of our students. This looks different for different student populations. We're looking at everything ranging from Wi-Fi hotspots to actual computers. WSU has done an amazing job working with the Washington Broadband Office to create a drive-in Wi-Fi, and I'm happy to include those links to you as well in a follow-up. And the other thing is we really want to encourage students to come to us with questions. Maybe one of the silver linings of the pandemic is the value of student agency. When students come to college or university, they are the client customer focused. And so the earlier they can learn how to engage with our institutions, because we engage with our students, they're engaged with their parents or teachers or counselors. What I mean by that is, if a student has a financial aid question or if they have a registration question, it is because of our privacy and our engagement and policies, the student is who we focus on. And without permissions, that information, it has limitations where it can be shared elsewhere. This is a real opportunity for us to really build student agency with our institutions. We don't bite. We are not scary. In fact, some of the people I work with are some of the most accessible, nice people I've met in my entire life. And so we really encourage students to reach out, and we have done a lot of work in our COVID website and other places to really provide direct contact, so students don't have to try to look through the maze of our websites to find key people around admissions, financial aid, and dual credit. The other thing that I would really ask from all of you is, as you are doing your reopening plans for K-12, to communicate to those high feeder schools for which your students go to about any changes you'll be making around your grading or course credit taking. I noticed in looking at a number of reopening plans that some gradings have changed, And also that some students may be taking lesser credit workload. It's really important if schools and districts can communicate that to higher education institutions so that they can be well prepared when they are looking at transcripts and evaluating policies for your students. If you want to send that information to me, I'm happy to get after my sector. If not, I strongly encourage you to communicate with the admissions folks that you'll see here on this call to help us out. We know that this is a trying time and that the uncertainty breeds a lot of questions and questions about our future. We wanted to just really give you some insights into those meetings you have with your students where they may be considering their options. I think the thing that we are communicating with students is eye on the prize. This is a moment in a student's education journey. While we don't know what the future may look like, how much it will look like the past. We know at some point we will return to in-person learning, and that students should really be making decisions that are that fit them and their educational goals. We want to make sure that students are making those choices so that they can have the most efficient and impactful education in order for them to be successful in, say, the U.S. post-secondary. So really working with our students to recognize that this is a moment in time and the value and the quality of education they have here in the state of Washington. The other thing is that remote learning may not be the high school experience that some students have had. We have a long and quality and nationally and internationally recognized remote learning apparatus within our sector. And our faculty and our institutions are very comfortable with this. We have a global campus at WSU. UW has a variety of remote learning opportunities. Our comprehensives also do that as well. And this is something that we've been engaged in for several years as we have looked to see that distance learning is becoming a new modality for several different types of degrees and pathways. A couple of things just to make sure you are aware as you're advising your students is that our colleges admit students for a term. And sometimes, those, depending on the policies of the institution, those terms may not roll over. So if a student is considering deferring admission, they really want to engage with the institution that they are working with to make sure that those policies are aligned. The other thing is that we want to make sure that students understand that if they take any type of college credit after the summer of their high school graduation, that their status turns to transfers. And that can have different implications for admissions and also for scholarships. So we want to be mindful of how impact decisions really impact their status. The other thing is that there are financial aid impacts around deferment and stacking of financial aid, and also potential implications if you're a current student and they refer. And finally, we want students to go, and we know that any delay potentially delays their educational goals for a long time. And so we want students to be mindful. Again, this is a moment in time. It seems like a very long moment in time, but we really want to encourage students to continue to drive after their educational goals. So just a little bit about us. These are the undergraduate students we serve. As you can see, we continue observing that we have a very access and diverse population. Our students are your students. We have students who are facing insecurities around housing and food. We have low-income students, students of color, students who identify as LGBTQ. We have all the students that you see and face with disabilities, English language learners. Those are our students. Your students are our students. I think there is often a misperception that because we have an admissions process that we are interested in and or weed out students, and we don't. We want to serve the diverse population in Washington, and we do. And so this helps kind of reflect some of that work. The other thing about Washington that's really critical is that we have an excellent time to degree. The students attend our school. We get students out usually just a little over 4 years, as you can see by this, from once they enter us from high school. The other thing is that there's a variety of opportunities for them to engage in college early on, and different modalities for students to do that. So we're really working in a dynamic curriculum and teaching environment that is looking for students and to meet their goals once they leave us. The other thing is that we are not the colleges and universities that you like, that you're certain of graduated from. Our schools are dynamic and meeting new needs. We are constantly doing data analysis and engagement with our students. We're looking at ways to ensure that students have multiple credentials and ways to engage in their learning environment that is directly applicable and will drive towards employment afterwards. And we'll continue to work with the economy and the businesses to make sure that our students are getting the skills they need. And this is recognized when we start to look at the recognitions our institutions across our sector get every year. These are just some of the most recent accolades that our institutions are recognized. We are recognized nationally and internationally as individual institutions and not just as a sector, as having excellent, accessible, quality education for Washingtonians. The other thing is I think it's a misperception is the costs. Washington continues to rank as 10 in the lowest student debts. In fact, we continue to move up. We increased our ranking to 5th place this year. And over half of the students who graduated in the class of 2018 graduated with no debt. The other thing is that we know that the bachelor's degree in particular is a credential that is necessary for the future. As we look into the future, we know that students are going to need not only a post-secondary credential, but a bachelor's as we move forward and look at the new jobs that we have. And we know that earning a bachelor's degree not only has an economic impact, but it also has other societal, social, and community impacts that are positive for students, or for the state, the individual, and families. Finally, a few updates. Dual credit. So we did the final implementation of legislation that was passed in 2018 to create equivalencies for AP, IB, and Cambridge. We continue to work with our colleagues at OSPI, State-Owned Community Technical Colleges, and WASAC to update FAQs for all the different community college, or all the different dual credit programs. So you can find those on our website and also on our partners' websites. Our sector is working on a one-stop shop for dual credit. So it will be a dual credit tool before which your students can come and learn about how we philosophically approach dual credit, how we do equivalencies, and those types of things. And then, as Kim mentioned earlier, stay tuned. This fall, we're doing a webinar series around dual credit. I just want to leave you with a few key takeaways. I cannot underscore enough that we are excited to welcome Washington students to any one of our public four-year colleges. We want your students. We want them. We think it is important that we grow our own. There are amazing and terrific opportunities here in the state of Washington across the board, and they are quality, and we're working together from apprenticeship to PhDs to certificates and other credentials. Students really have amazing opportunities, and I think the more we're working together to underlie those for students, I think is important. And finally, your students are our students. We are committed to continuing now and in the future to educate all of our students with a commitment to identifying and reducing gaps among student populations. As I mentioned, a few resources, and you'll get a copy of all of our PowerPoints today, is our COVID FAQ, which we are continuing to update, some sector facts and figures, and then other academic information around dual credit, SBAC, those types of things. Finally, here are the websites for our sector and my contact information. My door, my email, my phone are always open, so please don't hesitate to reach out and contact if you have questions about our sector or looking for engagement. So thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate the updates. And we are going to shift the schedule a little bit if there are folks out there following along. We have one more presentation from Independent Colleges of Washington. So I'll ask Terry to begin to share their screen. And once Terry is complete with updates, then we will shift over to our break time and then move into live Q&A. And so we are on track, and we'll get back on there. And please continue to provide your questions in the Q&A function. Thank you.
Jenna, good morning, and thank you. Thank you to everyone. I'm Terry Standish-Kwan, and I lead Independent Colleges of Washington. I've been in the state for just a little bit now, and have not had the pleasure of being on the road with all of you, so it's terrific to be with you virtually this morning. What I'll do Just a quick look at who our member campuses are. 10 member campuses in independent colleges of Washington. They are 5 in Eastern Washington and 5 in Western Washington. Independent Colleges of Washington is an association of these 10 private not-for-profits. And just as you heard from Ha and from Julie, collectively, we are really committed to serving Washingtonians and working with our higher education partners around the state. And we're really grateful for the frontline work that all of you have done in helping your students in these times. I did want to really start this morning with a statement around our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want you to hear that our campuses are deeply involved in engaging on diversity from multiple dimensions. And I've included some links to our racial justice and social equity action plans, and also links to some of the resources that students would have on campus. And of course, these resources are not just for our students, but also for faculty, staff, and administrators, as we're really looking at diversity from a system level. For just a moment, I want to give you a quick, let's see if that will work. I just want to play a video for you. Go. This will just be a quick overview of who we are. So thank you for sticking with me just as I changed modes there. There we go. So just a quick 2-minute overview of who we're serving, and just wanted to mix it up a little bit this morning. Let's see. So looking specifically to the questions that your campus, that your students might have this as they're coming through the fall semester and thinking about their post-secondary journey, all member colleges of Independent Colleges of Washington now have pathways where standardized tests are optional. There are some exceptions. For example, if you are working with independent counselors who are working with homeschooled students, but we do want you to know that in this particular environment, that there is this pathway. We've put a number of resources, and you heard Ha and Julie talk about our work together and different statements and guidance. There is this landing page for you after today. We're looking specifically at the students who would want to be joining us next fall of 21, and also, of course, any transfer students who want to be joining us this year. Also a look at our dual credit students who are taking college in the high school or running START before they come to us. And then you'll also see direct admissions information for each one of our member campuses. You might have some questions from families now just about what campus life is like. So I did want to include some information for our current students around COVID-19. Particularly because all of our campuses have got different modes of instruction this fall. So just wanted to give you this information about the work that we're doing for surveillance testing on an ongoing basis. So it happens that now 3 of our campuses are on quarters and 7 are on semester. All of our campuses have returned to the academic term in some fashion. So for those campuses that do have students on campus with faculty and staff, these are just some of the testing and screening protocols that we're going through to make sure that our student communities are safe. With respect to our fall classes, this is just a look that our students really have been able to choose. I've actually talked about it as choose your own adventure. So students have been able to design programs that meet their needs, whether that be fully remote, hybrid, or blended classes that mix in-person with remote, and then in-person instruction at a number of our campuses. All of our campuses that are offering in-person classes are doing it in a deeply de-densified way. And so if you've got questions about particular campuses, do reach out. Looking to the year ahead and programs of study that might interest your students, I just wanted to make sure you had these highlights. So several undergraduate majors and a good variety of new undergraduate minors. Some new graduate programs coming on board. In terms of new facilities that your students would find on our member campuses, here are just a couple of examples at Gonzaga, St. Martin's, and Seattle U. And then really, I just want to make sure that you have a way of being directly in touch with my colleagues who are working on our member campuses. So I've got both these admissions contacts as well as our transfer counselors. And really for any student that you think would be finding success at one of our campuses, please do reach out. There are the transfer counselors there. And I know that you saw that preview of the video from Julie earlier, but just want you to know these are our 10-member college presidents, and we welcome your students. As Julie said, we are committed to educating the home team. We want more Washingtonians to think about their futures and to think about them here at home, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Jana, thank you.
Okay, everyone, that is break time. I encourage you to get up, move around. I may have just had a chocolate chip cookie because what else do we do on these events, right? We get our year's worth of cookies during these events. So we'll come back at 10:15. That's when we will start back up with the live Q&A. And yeah, so enjoy your break. Take a breath. All right, university partners, college partners who I know are getting logged in the last bit of time, we want to remind you to please update how we see your name. It's very helpful for our guests if they know where you work. So please take some time to change it to just your first name, that's fine, and the school that you are working with, so our guests know who's actually here. You can do so by clicking on your blue dots in the right corner and then clicking rename. So a reminder to our panelists, our guests, of which there are about 400 folks, we can't see them. So if you're like, where'd everybody go? We cannot see them. They can see us, okay? And Jana and I are gonna go through the questions one at a time. I will tell you there are quite a few questions for the agency partners, so I do want to kind of prep everyone for that. And guests, counselors, you now have access not just to the agencies, but to all of these fantastic admissions professionals. So please, if you had not thought to ask a question of any of our universities, community and technical colleges, I encourage you to think on that and use that Q&A box to address a question to any of our school partners. Reminder, it's very helpful to us that you address it specifically to someone if you do specifically want Ruth from Whitworth, as I see your face, if you want her to answer that question, you tell us you want her to answer that question and we'll make sure that it gets addressed properly. Okay, Jana, are you ready?
Let's go for it.
Let's do it.
All right, I'll start off with the first one and then we'll switch off, Megan.
Yeah, sounds
The
good.
first one is, are students that submitted a WSPA included in the 46% that did not submit a FAFSA?
I'd be happy to answer that one. So the 46% that did not complete, that is just FAFSA numbers. It's not inclusive of WASA numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue on. I think, Christina, this is a good one for you. The FAFSA forecaster is gone. Where do we find the new calculator?
I know, I'm very sad that it's gone, but we got you covered. The new calculator is on the 12th site, and I'm gonna have Yokiko or Sam add that link into the chat, or I will in a second. But it will be available, actually it's available now. So we just got it like last week. We're really excited about it.
Great. And Christina, this next one I believe is for you as well. Regarding the low FAFSA completion, there's an assumption by some parents that completing the FAFSA will have a negative impact on their child's application. This has been perpetuated by some private consultants. Is this true? If not, how can we clarify the misinformation?
So this is a financial aid myth I've been hearing this year and over the summer a little bit. Applying for financial aid is not going to impact admissions. So there's admissions and financial aid, and they're two different processes. So you can apply for financial aid for days and days and days, but you don't match it to an admissions application. You're not going to send that money anywhere. It doesn't impact your admissions decision. It really is just a funding tool to see if you can qualify for some grants, things like that. So it's not going to impact your admissions decision. You just have to make sure you apply. That's the biggest thing. I've had so many students this summer that were like, I applied for financial aid. When am I getting into that school? And it's like June, y'all. Y'all know that means like they did not get an admissions decision because they didn't apply. So as long as they do both the processes, they're good, but it's not going to impact the other.
Excellent. Christina, can you potentially please, they would like a direct link to a request for the key.
Oh, yeah.
Into the live chat.
Of course. Let me do that right now. I'm going to pull it directly from Survey Gizmo for y'all.
And counselors, if you don't have that key, you are missing out. It is gold.
Reach out to me. I would love to send you a key. I'm a locksmith's daughter. I just want to provide the world with keys. So let me send you a flash drive. If yours is not working, or I know some people may have lost them over summer, it's okay to reach out and get another one. So even the dogs agree you should be getting a key.
She was doing so well all morning. I knew that she was going to join the party. That's Fiona, everyone, named after Princess Fiona of Shrek.
Oh.
There she is. Okay, thank you, Christina.
All right, next question, also for Christina and crew. Are there resources available, AKA trained people, who will come out to financial aid workshops in rural areas? We've been trying unsuccessfully for years to get support, but no one responds or shows up.
Oh no. So for 12th year campaign, we'd be happy to train you. We're doing virtual right now. So everything's virtual until it's safe for travel, but I'd be happy to do a virtual event. I've been doing district events as well as classroom events, trainings for staff, financially 101. So reach out to me and I'd be happy. I'm going to put my email in the chat, but reach out to me. I'm happy to do training on financial aid. It is one of my favorite things to do. So you're doing me a favor.
Thanks, Christina.
Yeah. Okay, hi Christina. Has the CBS portal been updated to reflect 2024 apps yet? This person has 0 listed.
Okay, Yokiko, I know Yokiko is here and I see her beautiful face and she's gonna respond to this one.
Hi there. So the CBS portal gets its data from you, who gives it to your district, who uploads it into the portal. So College Bound doesn't have any control over what you see inside the portal. That actually generates from your school level and into your district level.
Fiona, stop. Oh my God, I'm so
I thought you were talking to me. Yeah, I won't stop just yet, Megan, sorry. So just an FYI, if you don't see that updated information in there, you need to double check with your school and figure out who it is that does your upload and does that data transfer. Because College Bound doesn't own that. We're just sort of a third party in that sense. But if you have questions about that, if you need access to the portal, we now have a high school version to the portal. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm the only Yokiko, like straight up. You're not going to meet another Yokiko, and I'm the only one who works at WASAC for College Bound. So let me know if you have questions about the portal.
Thanks, Yokiko. This question is for Kim. Is an HSBP summit still in the works for this year? For the financial aid information, HSBP requirement, what counts as evidence that the student received financial aid information?
Yeah, so great question. Linda Drake at the State Board of Ed was sort of the driver behind the High School and Beyond Plan Summit, and they did not get their decision package through funded last year. So as far as I know, that is not a go right now. That doesn't mean that can't change, especially if we see a lot of need being expressed for that. We can try to throw something together, but nothing's in the works at the moment. As far as documentation, what I showed you on the screen, if you go into the High School and Beyond Plan template, which, is it okay if I share my screen, Jana? Again, I'm doing it anyway. This is the page that I linked you to in the chat. It's just the graduation landing page on OSPI's website. So if you go to the search bar when you go to OSPI and just put graduation in right there, you'll get to this page. The new template is here and it is linked for you. To the person who said it was the old template that was linked, you're on the High School and Beyond Plan page, and I sent in a request to make sure that was updated. That obviously didn't get done. So this is the new one. And what I want to do is just, since we're trying to be quick here, this is the financial aid page that I screenshotted for you. And what we tried to do in structuring these questions is make sure that if students completed this, it's basically a personal testimony that they've received the information that they need. And that is how we built it into our template. This is our effort to get away from y'all creating spreadsheets with every senior's name and every single component of the High School and Beyond Plan as a checkoff, because that becomes an administrative nightmare, not to mention it doesn't really benefit you or the students. So this is our way of trying to say personal testimony, I've gotten what I need, I know the answers to these questions, and that should be sufficient. Remember that you all do make those decisions at the local level as to whether or not a student has met their High School and Beyond Plan.
Excellent, thank you. I'll tell you, peanut butter and a Kong, folks, magic. Hello, and do you know of any sites that are offering the ASVAB currently? My understanding is that it is not online right now.
To the best of my knowledge, that exam is an in-person only. And there is the option even now for your local district to make a determination that you can offer something like that within current public health guidelines. Obviously, it would likely necessitate more proctors on their end than they might normally be used to providing in order to separate students out by 6 feet and have enough room to offer that exam. But that is an option that is available by current guidelines and guidance if you can get them spaced out appropriately and use your safety guidelines. And if the ASVAB folks have enough people to help proctor.
Perfect. Thank you, Kim. Next
And
question
to Doug, sorry, Jana, Doug mentioned that there is an online via computer from Spokane. Doug, if you have more information you could put in the chat. That is not something that I was aware of, that they had an online option. So if that is the case, I would really love to know that, because I was told they don't.
Thanks, Kim. Next question is for Jocelyn, UW Seattle, and any others using the Common App and or the Coalition app. Now that our district has gone to a 3+3 schedule, when our students enter college level, in parentheses, dual credit, UW astronomy, etc., courses into their application, should they choose semesters or quarters?
So that's a great question, Suzanne. I am furiously typing my colleagues on Teams to see if anyone knows the answer, and we don't yet. So let me get back to you on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Others on Common App that want to provide a response?
Okay, our next question. Do students have to have military as a consideration to use the ASVAB as an alternative test score?
I'll take that one, Megan. Thank you. So first of all, let's remember, in the spirit of continuous improvement, that there no longer are alternatives to the exams. All of these are graduation pathways, and they are considered equal in value to each other. With that being said, the whole purpose of the pathways is to make sure that students are completing some of the gateways to post-secondary options that they may be choosing. And right now, the ASVAB is not something that is required for college admissions. It's not required for most employers. It's not required for apprenticeships or any of the other things that you would expect to see, other than something that's military related. In the data that we've gathered so far that is preliminary, it looks like about 3% of seniors completed an ASVAB graduation pathway last year, which is about what we expected relative to the number of seniors who typically enlist. So it should be something that military preparation is needed for their career interest for an ASVAB to be their actual graduation pathway.
Thank you. This is a general question. How do you guys look at or evaluate a transcript for admittance that has statistics or financial algebra as a third year of math? So if we can have a couple folks respond to that, that would be great. And I can read it again. How do you guys look at or evaluate a transcript for admittance that has statistics or financial algebra as a third year of math? Go ahead, Wendy. Then Ruth. Oh, Wendy, we can't hear you. You are unmuted. Wendy, if you want to send your response in the chat or to the question on the Q&A, that'd be great. And then I know Ruth, I think you had your hand waved, and then Carrie. Ruth, we can't hear you either. But you are unmuted.
Shall we go for 3 for 3? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Shoot. So I'll just say that at Gonzaga, it is going to depend on what the student might be interested in majoring in. Obviously, if they're interested in something that requires more math or a specific type of math, like if it's someone who wants to go into engineering, we would really like to see them on a calculus track. But if they've gone through Algebra 2 and this is their third year in math, we really like to see students do 3 or 4, again, depending on what they're interested in. So they can always use that additional information section in the Common Application to kind of explain why they did whatever path they might have taken for any of us who are on the Common App. That can be helpful, but it certainly isn't like an automatic note. We won't look at that student. We're going to look at what they've done in context with the rest of their application, as well as what they might be interested in studying.
Thank you, Carrie. Carl?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, at Evergreen, we want to see that Algebra 2. However, if a student doesn't take Algebra 2 and takes one of the other maths, as long as they have all of the other caters, then we'll be able to accept them. But if there's any of the other caters that are missing, then we can't accept the student.
Thank you, Carl. Any others? Michael?
Yeah. I'm Michael. I represent St. Martin's University. And when we review applications, it's very holistic view of the application. So the math class that they're taking their 3rd and 4th year may not affect their admission decision, but we do try to look for those higher level math classes. We do require a math placement exam students take in the summer, so that will definitely show us what level of math they're in, and then show us what math level class they can be placed in. So that is what we look in.
Great, thank you.
Okay, if others have different perspectives, we've got the chat open as well for those on Common and Coalition Map to answer that question. Next question, I think, Kim, this one's going to go to you. Is it on the agenda for legislative change in January to extend EAA?
So that's a great question, and one that I don't know yet. That's really going to be up to local folks to do their own advocacy in their region with their legislators and help them to understand what the needs are. And then when they come back to town, I haven't seen it yet on any of their early days. I can't remember what they're called. I'm blanking, sorry. Haven't seen that on the agenda yet, but it's something that I won't be surprised if it shows up, and especially if y'all use your advocacy skills as school counselors to talk about need in your own districts. That is typically more powerful than anything that would come from any of us at the agency.
And there was another question that was very similar to this one that stated, will people be advocating for the EAA waiver during the legislative session for our students this year?
So again, part of it's going to depend on what kind of groundswell comes from locals and to their own legislators. I think partly it's also going to depend on how protracted the school closure building closures are and how long our current seniors are in that virtual space, whether or not there seems to be more need. Just me speaking from my own personal opinion, not OSPI, I really assumed that there would be a push for this even when 1599 passed, because it was such a quick implementation of the new graduation pathways with really no time for schools to plan and to build programming for it. And I think COVID has exacerbated that problem because so many of our exam options were missing. So I would not be surprised at all to see agency push as well. But like I said, y'all are more powerful voices in that space than we are.
Thank you. Next question, primarily for agencies. Many schools aren't offering SAT or ACT, so that pathway isn't an option for many of our seniors needing the test. Can we absolutely plan on the SBAC? There's a concern we don't have options to actually fulfill these pathways.
So again, like I said before, OSPI is operating as if the SBAC will be given this spring. And to the question about whether or not 10th through 12th graders will be able to take it, they always have been able to. I assume that will be a push this year given the lack of access last spring. So we're moving forward as if it's going to happen. And as you all well know, we don't have a crystal ball yet that has accurately forecasted what's going to happen with this public health crisis. So we can't say with any guarantee that yes, that will happen, but we are moving forward right now as if it will. And I think if we get creative, we'll figure it out even if we're still in the middle of a pandemic.
Thanks, Kim. Is the class of 2021 grad toolkit available? Someone's not seeing it on the website.
It is, and again, I had posted you guys or shown you the webpage that it's on. I will put that direct link in the chat again for you. That is the page where it is posted. It is the first thing in the what's new box on the right-hand side.
Next question is, how do you evaluate a transcript if a student doesn't do the second year of fine arts because they wanted to take more science and math classes for personal pathway instead?
Anna, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. For Washington State University, we follow the WASAC guidelines in that if a student has an additional academic cater, that can substitute for fine, visual, or performing arts.
Any others that want to provide a response? Go for it, Megan.
Okay, Christina, this one might be for you. Why is the financial aid advising day so late into the year when the application opens in October?
Great question. So it's not that the advising day is late in the year, it's that you have until December 1st to have your event. And so it actually is that you have until September, end of September until December 1st to have those events and to provide information to students. We know that that's not like December 1st is not like, and financial aid's done, woo! It's not how it works. We know that we continually have to work with students through verification, and also with 2019 information being used, we know that families' income has most likely changed in certain circumstances from what they were making in 2019 to now. So there's also the fact that they're going to want to be putting in for appeals for financial aid depending on their financial circumstances. So I think it's really placed at a good time. We're hosting financial aid events all through October, November, and in December that you can co-host with us for financial aid advising days. But it's not that it is on December 1st, it just has to be kind of wrapped up by December 1st for that event. But we know that it's long beyond that you're gonna be doing financial aid stuff. And we have resources for all the different student populations. Our workbooks are available in paper as well as digital this year. So if you're working with students who don't have access to technology, or maybe it's bandwidth that they're struggling with, we can send you paper packets to put on lunch pickups.
Awesome, Christina, this one is very similar. Someone just asked, hey, can you explain further what financial aid day is? Can you go into a little bit more detail?
So yeah, so Financial Aid Advising Day, it is an opportunity for you to engage your students on financial aid information so they know their financial aid pathways, how to fund their post-secondary goals. So the goal of it is to inform all students of their opportunities with the Washington College grant, how to fill out an application, what they're eligible for, using tools like the calculator. We also have some those videos that I talked about to share with students to help prepare them for their financial aid day. So it's to help students understand all the things available to them to help fund their education so that they are well informed. And I noticed that this summer I had students, I don't know about you guys, but I had students that were taking out unsubsidized before subsidized loans, or I had a student decline all their grants because they thought grants were loans. So this really helps them understand that to make informed decisions for themselves. Does that answer your question, I hope? And if not, message me. I can talk for days on this business. I love it.
Thanks, Christina. This one's for our universities, colleges, as well as I could see ICW and COP jumping in. But what impact do Ps have on transcripts for admissions? We have heard a P is seen as a C grade. Go ahead, we'll go Annalise, then Wendy, then Carrie.
Thanks, Jen. I actually had a question back. Oh, this is Annalise from Seattle Pacific. I'm wondering how the schools will be grading Ps themselves, like how it will be counted in the overall GPA calculation for the high schools. So I'm curious about that. Typically, we don't calculate a passing grade in the overall GPA, but I'm curious how the schools will be calculating that in the overall cumulative GPA calculation.
Thank you. And comments can be placed in the chat. I know there's some already coming in. Wendy and then Carrie.
So for Washington State University, and I think this is probably true for the rest of the public baccalaureates, and Julie, you can give me a big no if it's not true, but we're not recalculating a pass grade into a letter grade. So, and typically the schools don't calculate a pass into their cumulative GPAs either. So we're not recalculating what you provide to us.
Yes, that's true. I think I shook my head anyhow. I think I did the wrong head nod to the.
Oh, well, just turn yourself sideways and then it'll work.
I know. I was trying to say, right, we don't recalculate. So yes, you're correct.
And I would just add to that, I know that for Gonzaga and probably likely all of the privates as well, we're also not recalculating. We are not making a C equivalent or making a P equivalent to a C. We aren't adding that into GPA at all. And we certainly recognize that students are, working with whatever marks they have and school districts are working with whatever the marks they have too. So I'm pretty sure that would be all of us. And it looks like in the chat, there are a bunch.
Great.
Anna, can I just add, sorry, for the University of Washington, again, we don't recalculate either, but there's so many different grading scale changes that we're seeing, and we're getting tons of questions around A versus incomplete, or, credit, no credit versus my grading scale didn't change at all. How am I going to be compared to those that whose grades changed? And I would just assure students that you're working with that the holistic review that we do can accommodate for all of those scenarios, and that's the beauty of it, and that's why we do it. So anything you can do to help calm some of those concerns. We're dealing with a lot of those questions right now and trying to help alleviate that anxiety that I think students are feeling. So,
kind of speaking on behalf of our sector, the public baccalaureates, I would echo what Jocelyn says. Our institutions, and we say this repeatedly throughout our joint statements and our COVID, is we are not here to disadvantage students because of the pandemic. And our institutions are doing as much as possible with flexibilities and engagement with students and understanding to ensure students that they will have access to our institutions despite changes that are very much out of their control. And so anything we can all do collectively to help reduce anxiety and stress for students and families amidst all the stress and anxiety that they're already facing through COVID or wildfires or other personal things would be really helpful for us to collectively work on so that we don't unintentionally exacerbate that situation.
Excellent, thanks everyone. So Kim, these questions came in 2 minutes apart from each other, so I believe folks are referring to the same thing. So someone was asking that they don't see a link that you keep referring to, and then the next question was saying, I don't see the new HSBP template on the OSPI HSBP website. They still see the old template.
Yes, so thank you. I deeply apologize, everyone. I had picked the all panelists not be all panelists and attendees on my chat box. So yay, all my panelists were seeing my stuff, but not you. So I have fixed that. It is not the high school and beyond plan page where the new template is posted. That apparently got missed in my request. And so I've asked again. What I did just post for you again is the page where all the new templates and toolkits are located. It's just the graduation landing page on OSPI's website, and it is in the What's New box on the right.
Thanks, Kim. For Common App schools and those with personal statement essays that provide COVID-related prompts or responses, is there a general list of do's and don'ts on what admissions are looking for? So I'll read it again. For Common App schools and those with personal statement essays that provide COVID-related prompts or responses, is there a general list of do's and don'ts on what admissions are looking for?
Jana, I'll just speak up here, but we're a Common App school. We don't actually require anything that says specifically about COVID, but if a student wanted to address things within the Common App, because that last question is basically make up your own question and answer it, they could, and then it would just be the same things that we would be looking for. But I don't know if there is a school on here that has a question that is really specific to COVID. But in general, I'd say we're just looking for the same things for the students to show that they can write well and that they're addressing, you know, something that an experience they've gone through and reflecting on it.
You'll see some notes in the section. There is a community disruption section on the Common App, and it looks like Coalition App. I saw Jocelyn wrote something in there, and I think other schools added it. And it really makes it so a student doesn't have to use their personal statement to write about COVID-19 if that's not the story they want to tell from their life. But instead, if they just want to give us like the nitty-gritty details, because every district, county, state handled COVID-19 a little bit differently, and we're getting applicants from all over the place. It's hard for us to keep up with what each school did. And we're going to obviously give the student the benefit. As you heard, we're not recalculating GPAs, but if the student wants to talk about especially how COVID-19 impacted their learning environment, their ability to focus on school, their ability to participate in extracurricular activities, what they were hoping to do that got canceled, I think those are all the things that can be in that COVID-19 or natural disaster section, but it is totally up to them what they write. I think it's just a nice option that it's there now, especially because COVID-19 is one thing, but we also know natural disasters happen every year. So tell them to use it and tell us something, but they don't have to use it. It is not a requirement.
Can I just add one thing? We're obviously not on the Common App, but the Coalition has a similar question, but it has some checkboxes so they can identify if, you know, they didn't have consistent internet access to do schooling, if a parent lost a job, if they lost a job, if someone was ill in the household. So those types of things we find really useful because, again, it provides just that additional context to that environment that the student was in during this time.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Others want to add in?
Okay, next question. So recently the Vancouver Public Schools started to test kids in world language using the AVANT test. Some of our students earned 3+ credits for their language, but we do not assign a grade. Do the four-year universities accept this for admission, or do the students still need to take 2 years of a world language in the traditional classroom? I have an answer, but I'm going to let other people talk. Go for it, Wendy.
Okay, I am assuming that even if a grade is not assigned, that the credits are at least on the transcript. And as long as the district accepts that as meeting the language requirement as a cater at Washington State University, we would accept it. I'm assuming it would be a pass or just plain credit.
Do any other universities want to chime in about that test? I know we accepted at UW-Tacoma. Excellent. So yay, testing for foreign language.
All right, next question. Can all talk about caters during COVID and students that missed their spring 2020 courses? Who would like to provide some thoughts? I'll read the question again. Can all talk about caters during COVID and students that missed their spring 2020 courses? Go ahead, Wendy.
So each of us at the public universities in Washington have some flexibility with respect to the caters, and we have flexibility up to three caters. And so I think we're all looking with an eye to how do we best help students. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that students are prepared academically for success. So, you know, we can exercise a little bit of flexibility in that. If there's a particular student that you're worried about or concerned about, I would say reach out to the institution individually, and we'll really try to work with you. I don't know that there's a cut and dried answer across the board, but just know that our guiding principle is to help and at the same time to make sure that students are academically ready for this next step.
Okay, seeing no other responses. To whoever asked that question, I really do think it would be best to reach out to schools individually if there's a certain circumstance or a certain student that you're concerned about. Next question is about our friends, the SAT and ACT. There's certainly an emphasis on the suspension of standardized tests for admissions purposes. That I think has been pretty clear. This person is wondering, what does that emphasis imply? Will those tests still will they still be used for scholarship placements or scholarship consideration? And then they state that seniors cannot get into the test, and so it's important to ask questions about them. So I think that if there is an institution that is still going to be requiring an SAT or ACT for scholarship consideration, please let yourself be known. All right, so hopefully, Stephanie, that puts your mind at ease. That at least the folks in this space, that the SAT or ACT will not be required for admission or for scholarship consideration in this sense. Thanks.
Carl.
Megan, can you save that question for Thursday just in case no one asks it? Because I think that's a good question.
I don't know because I just hit done on it. So make a note, we'll both try to remember.
I can also just include, Carl, I'll include, I can include, kind of work on some language to share when I.
Thanks, Julie.
There is a similar question as far as the impact on financial aid of not submitting test scores and how are schools considering merit-based aid. I'll answer for Eastern. We're looking at students' GPA to look at merit aid. And so if my colleagues are doing the same, shake your head or thumbs up or, yeah, okay.
We're going to look at Gonzaga, both merit aid, or both the GPA, but also the difficulty of curriculum. We'll look at writing throughout the application. So it's the whole holistic review and not only the GPA, but that is what we're looking at. And that's true for the honors program. It's true for direct entry programs. It's true for all of the above.
I would also like to add something. For St. Martin's, we also look at community service and leadership opportunities that students have done throughout their high school experience. So that's why it's really important for students to fill out their application as much as possible, especially in the activities and honors section of the application, just so we get that again, holistic review of what they've done throughout their high school career. So that does get implemented into our merit scholarship calculation, as well as GPA.
And I'll just make a pitch here, and I think this is not just for this last fall and fall 2021, but as you've heard from a lot of our admissions, not just in our sector, but across nationally, that we are all moving towards a more holistic review of students. We find that that is both a way to reduce barriers for students of color and other students who come from underserved backgrounds, and gives us a better understanding of our students. So what that does is that moves us from an old style academic index, right, where you had a certain GPA or a certain test score you were in, and those were abilities that we've had through research and analysis to really be able to score how students are going to meet and be placed in our institutions. And so we're going from a very metric-oriented approach to admissions nationally and in the state of Washington, and I think in our sector in particular, to one that's a lot more qualitative. Yeah, that's the right word. Qualitative. And so what becomes critical to that, and I know we're speaking with counselors, but to the extent that you can talk with the registrars in your districts, is the accuracy of your high school transcript. Because we are going to be looking at GPAs, we're going to be looking at course patterns, trends, activities like the gentleman Michael just mentioned about some St. Michael's. We're looking at the whole student. So if the transcript is inaccurate, it really becomes challenging for our institutions to evaluate and to determine how students will be, if they align well with the institution mission and the goals. You know, roughly we anticipate, we've done in some data analysis, only about a third of all high school transcripts are accurate. So students are doing all this incredible work. They're doing all this innovative work and preparing themselves for their futures. And yet really the primary document that maps that out for higher ed is not accurate in the state of Washington. And so really working with school districts to make sure that their transcripts are accurate and current and meeting the guidelines that OSPI has put out and engaging with higher ed so that we understand those best would be really helpful for us to be student-centered, especially as we are trying to move into an environment that is less structured and more student-oriented at the admissions level.
Thanks, Julie. This one's fun because it's a question for Jana, so I'm going to ask her. Hey, Jana, will Eastern be doing on-the-spot admissions processes this year, and what will it look like?
I was going to type the answer, but thanks. We will, but they will be virtual, of course. So territory managers will be reaching out to you and scheduling those. They will look a little bit different, but we're still going to offer that event for students and to get them connected with their admission advisor for their area. So more to come. Just check your emails. Oh, and now my turn to ask a question. All right. Let's see. I think this one's for Kim. Would you speak to whether or not Washington State is investing in improvement of high school counselor ratios, especially given the ever increasing list of duties and tracking added to the role of counselors every year?
Yeah, so OSPI has over the last few years been advocating for more school counselors and actually got substantial millions of dollars in the budget for more middle school counselors this last year. That was one of the things that was cut by the governor in the line item cuts that were made in order to try to balance our state budget. So we had some success, but unfortunately the pandemic took the rug and pulled it right out from underneath us on that one. I always want to remind you guys that from an allocation standpoint, the state budget does give every school district a 1 to 236 ratio in funding for high school counselors. So if your district is choosing to use those funds differently and not putting you closer to the recommended ASCA ratio at the high school level, that is something I would encourage you to start having some conversations with your administrator about and find out what it is that that funding is being used for instead. Most often it's for staffing in other places than school counseling. And that information is, I'm trying to think of where I have it. I can send that to Jana just to put in with the resources for this particular workshop. It's 1 to 236 is the current funding level in the prototypical school model for high school counseling only. And that came with the switch to the 24 credit diploma in 2016 in acknowledgement that you would need more resources at the high school level to help students navigate through their graduation requirements and into all these wonderful options that are sitting in front of you and the beautiful faces on your screen.
Excellent, thanks, Kim. So this next question could be answered by every single university. So I'm going to address this specifically to Seattle University, Tacoma Community College, and Central Washington University. So we'll get a good mix of folks. So the question is about current students, and folks would like to know, what supports are you providing to your students during COVID? And are there any specific supports that you're providing to students in compromising situations? And they listed things like housing, therapy, things of that nature. So Adrienne, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Megan. So we're approaching this through a lot of different angles and a lot of different programs, like many schools. On the first day of classes, we checked in with every single one of our incoming first-year students to see how that was going. But we also have a Connect Virtually page where we have all of the resources on plate for students to find. The Dean of Students, as well as some of our other offices, like the Office of Multicultural Affairs, has emergency funding, so we can address and support students as unique needs come up. We have about 1,000 students living on campus right now, living one student per room. So we have our residential advisors, as well as all of our student life staff connecting, supporting, and checking in. We're also creating space and resources and training for our faculty to identify and support students where those needs come in. We do have special funding to ensure everyone that needs technology, like laptops, as well as internet, to have support through our offices to make sure students have those connections, and are doing both a wide variety of big picture support systems, but also the individual check-ins to ensure students have the resources they need.
Fantastic. Christina, Tacoma Community College.
Megan, thank you so much for that very important question. My name is Christina, and I work at TCC, Go Titans, and we're combating it in very different ways. First, from an academic piece, and making sure that students have access to their academic advisors through online appointments to make that virtually as easy as possible. Also, with very minimal wait and one spot where students who need academic support through writing, business, math, students can easily just zoom in and be able to access any one of those tutors all at the same point, and also at very variety of days and times, of course. So we know that we have our late night study area, so we also provide that as well. Additionally, our community at TCC, we have to take care, and we get to take care of the whole student. So what that looks like is from housing needs. So we still have CHAP. I will say there is a waiting list, but we encourage students to still use that resource, which is helps in terms of funding and those students who are at risk of homelessness. Additionally, we understand that students during this trying time need a little bit of additional mental health support. So we are offering counseling for our student population. Additionally, we know that there is food insecurity as well around Tacoma and around our county. And so we still are offering our mobile food bank, our Titan pantry, to also help our students who need just those lifelines. Additionally, around technology, we are offering rental laptops, and there's a being able to pick up for our students. And also Wi-Fi can be a large barrier for our future Titans. And for those, we do offer free Wi-Fi right in our parking lot, so you can stay in there and do as much homework as they can. And again, it's a great free resource for our students. Additionally, TCC, we still have CARES funding, which will open for students who are interested in starting soon. We still have funding available that ranges from $500 to $1,000. And lastly, in terms of support funds, we do offer emergency funds as well for our current students. And we're limiting the documents that we're asking that are required. So if a student has a need, they fill out the form, we process it, and then we are able to secure those funds. So thanks again, Megan, for that question.
Fantastic. And then Mindy or Megan from Central.
Thanks, Megan. I would just like to echo a lot of what everyone else has already said. You know, CWU, we're absolutely supporting students as best we can during the challenging time. You know, back when everything started in spring, we've made extra effort to do calling campaigns to reach out personally to every single student to make sure that with a phone call and added support, they've been contacted. You know, food banks, mental health services, emergency support funds, all of those same sort of things we have available. Completely reworked our orientation program to be virtual friendly. We've waived the first year live on requirement. So students who feel more comfortable living at home doing their classes online their first year, they can do that. CWU has launched a CWU Together campaign that has really been trying to keep people together virtually. So yeah, lots of things going on.
And I was just going to add, the only other thing that I was thinking of in addition to what Megan already mentioned was, actually we are trying to provide some normalcy on campus. And so with the, limited number of students that are on campus, we want them to have some kind of normal college experience. And so certainly some programming as much as we're allowed to do as well.
All right, thank you, everybody. This next question may be helpful to answer from folks who work with athletic departments. If not, if you can guide folks on where they can get help answering this. But we have a counselor who's interested in any updates for NCAA student athletes. How will they be supported as student athletes coming to your college or university?
Jana, can I respond to this? Okay. I just have a little bit of information just in case people did not know. For Division I, Division II, NCAA, they have also suspended a requirement of having the SATs or ACTs. So I think that's an important thing to note with NCAA eligibility. And then I know that like in our athletics department, they're of course, reaching out to students, and as they are working with potential student athletes, doing a lot more virtual work as well. I would guess that many of us at our universities have places on our athletics pages where there's contact information for people to reach out. So I would just encourage those students who are interested in potentially pursuing athletics to use those pages. Like we have things like prospective student athlete questionnaires that students can fill out as well. And then of course they are also student athletes. And so we support them in the same way that we support all of our students, and in a holistic way. So that's anybody else who wants to add to that, please do.
Go ahead, Carl.
Evergreen is part of the NAIA, and they have also waived the test requirements for 2020-21. I mean, for 2021-22, sorry.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, excellent. So the next question, this person has a student who transferred from another country. His first year in the US, he has all P's for his grades for that year. Will that hurt him? The school already had the transcripts translated. Any responses? Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, I would say this is, we've had this situation numerous times over the years. And so again, we just look at each individual transcript and do our best to identify whether the student is academically prepared. But having all passes will not disadvantage that student in any way, at least for WSU.
Jocelyn, did you want to add something?
No. Just nodding in agreement. Passing grades are not a detriment to a student. It's the context. So knowing that they're coming from another country is something that would be taken under consideration.
I will add that at UW-Tacoma, if a student did like 9th grade in another country, we do actually still require the official transcript from the out-of-country high school. So that can often be a surprise that our local domestic high school is like, oh, but we already looked at it and we put it on the transcript. We need both. So don't let that surprise you.
And I'll say that's the same for Bothell, and we may actually reach out to the counselors or the registrar of the school to get some clarification on the transcript.
All right, thanks. Next question for colleges and universities. Would you rather see AP, IB honors courses, etc. on a transcript with a slightly lower GPA, or a general education classes with a higher GPA?
I say AP and IB courses with a higher GPA.
I don't know if that was a combination that was offered. I would say for, on behalf of Eastern, we really do look at decision-making, and similar to what we mentioned earlier, in a holistic review process. I don't think there's, at least for at Eastern, one specific combination that will help a student get a decision versus not, pending, deny, or admit. And so I think that is similar to quite a few of the schools here. Others, please definitely chime in if there are preferences. But either way, I don't think a student will be drastically affected in a decision in any combination.
Jana,
Can people hear me?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that at Whitworth and I think a few of the other private schools, we weight the student's GPA. So we know that high schools don't do that. So we are going to recalculate a student's GPA based on those classes. So honors, AP, IB, Cambridge, those all get recalculated on a 4.5 scale. So even if they take that class, it's harder, their grade is slightly lower, they're going to still get a boost for that.
And I'll say at Gonzaga that even though we do not weight GPAs, in fact, we unweight GPAs if someone says it's a weighted GPA, just so that everybody's on a 4-point scale, but we still look quite heavily at curriculum. And so we're still going to look to see what students took. However, I do think that there's quite a range in a student saying, well, if I get really good grades in just general classes, or if I get not so good grades, what does that mean? Like there's still a lot of wiggle room, I'd say, within that. So we're going to look at the whole thing in context and look at trends too. So if a student is, say, performing poorly in a particular subject area, then we would not recommend that they take those higher AP courses because they need to just stay with the basics in that area, but they might be strong in some other area where they can take some of those more challenging classes, because we do certainly consider the challenge of a curriculum as a part of the application.
Yeah, just something to add on to that. We do look at cumulative GPA unweighted, but definitely if there's like an upward curve, if the GPA is going up in that trend, that's definitely a plus. If it is kind of going down, we do have a prep program that we place students in with some additional guidance and help that they have like a personal resource, one of our staff members here on campus that will work more closely with them, checking in, making sure they're doing well in their classes here at the university.
And just to follow up with something that's in chat, we also weight GPAs very similarly to Ruth from Whitworth, but we also do not weight running start credits. So I know Ruth put that in the chat, but just for people that also have that question, generally schools don't, but you do get automatic credit for those. So there is still a benefit.
Gianna, is it my turn? I know that's, sorry. All right, next up, I think I heard Christina say the FAFSA forecaster is gone or going away. What is the replacement?
Okay, so the FAFSA forecaster, it's going bye-bye. I am so sorry to be the bearer of bad financial aid news, but they are not replacing it. It's going away. But we will have our state calculator, and I put the link in the chat before, so that's what I would be using with your students. So don't worry about the FAFSA forecaster, because remember that one took a lot of different information to calculate out for you. This is a little bit easier too. So I know we'll miss it, but we do have a wonderful replacement created by WASAC.
Thanks, Christina. This next question is for UW. Is UW going to a direct degree admission system / does degree choice impact admission decisions?
I can speak to the Seattle campus, and yes, last year was the first year well, let me take a step back. The first part of that question was, Jana, can you read that? I'm losing my train of thought, sorry.
No, you're good. And I
direct admission. So not all majors go direct admission. So let's just be clear about that. Computer science does direct admission. Engineering does admit students directly to the College of Engineering. Foster School of Business admits students directly. But whether, that's the primary pathway or not is really going to depend on the actual major. So we can talk afterwards if you have a specific question about a program. But in terms of utilizing major or requested major as part of the admission decision, it is a small factor, primarily for non-resident students.
And I'll add for Bothell, we actually are not doing direct admission for this next academic cycle. So student listing whatever major they're interested in is not going to impact our admissions decisions for this next year.
Tacoma does direct admission to our Milgard School of Business, and the choice of one's major does not impact admissibility. All right, I will keep keeping on. Next up, there's so many questions. This is a clarification about the SBA scores. So to clarify, SBA scores will not inform 11th grade course choices for our current 10th graders because SBA will not be offered this year. Internet connection was spotty where she was, so she wasn't sure what we said. Can someone speak to that?
So I want to clarify, it would have been the current junior class because it would have been last year's sophomores, where obviously you couldn't use an SBA score to inform their junior year classes. That's why there's an asterisk by that requirement. And depending on how things go this spring, we may have a second asterisk. We'll see, hopefully not. But yeah, it's going to just be in perpetuity for the class of 2022, an asterisk there.
Next question. Why are the Washington public colleges and universities going in opposite directions regarding consideration of the SBA demonstrating college readiness? Question mark. Community and technical colleges states a college ready score on the assessment you can bypass the math placement test most students have to take when they enroll in college. Council of Presidents states students attending Washington public four-year college and universities will need to have a prior college coursework showing efficiency in college level math or English, will not need to take a placement assessment.
Can I ask the first part? Was it why are we going in different directions on how we're accepting SBAC?
So why are the Washington public colleges and universities going in opposite directions regarding consideration of the SBA demonstrating college readiness?
So I wouldn't phrase it that way. We are different sectors, our institutions have different missions and different focuses. I'm happy to put a link in the chat that will link you to how we do the balanced assessment statement. Our sector reevaluated the SBAC when the decision was made by the legislature to move it to 10th grade for a variety of concerns around placement because of the additional years in between. And then prior to that, our sector has always asked for additional data and information regarding the ability to use the exams to demonstrate college readiness, and have not had that threshold met. And so our institutions believe that what the SBAC is a valuable assessment in high school for students to evaluate where they are and if it aligns with their educational goals. We're excited. I think we are very supported of that move back to 10th grade because it gives students a longer period of time prior to high school graduation to change course if they thought they were on one path and realized through the SBAC assessment that perhaps they aren't. We also think it provides an opportunity for high schools to continue to encourage students, regardless of their SBAC score, that they are college ready material. Some may just have to put a little more elbow grease in it to meet some of those needs. So I will be happy to put the link to the FAQ and our way that we handle the 10th grade assessment. But our change happened because, in large part, because of the movement from 11th to 10th grade. And then I think it also goes back to the larger conversation that our sector is having around reducing barriers, having an equity focus around admissions and looking at the whole student and not relying on any one test score or on other than that, other than as a tool assessment for students to engage in their own learning and to see where they are in terms of alignment of their own goals and
Okay. I'm going to ask the next question. Is there anywhere we can be directed to find an appropriate way to have college and high school and running start courses on the high school transcript? This person frequently hears that colleges want these cleared, but an example would be great. So I know that the transcript should list an indicator. There's like, is it an R? I don't have them all memorized. So you might want to connect with your school, your transcript person. Kim, take it away.
Yeah, it's a transcript designator. It's one of many options. And so if there's confusion in your district, you might need to check with your registrar and or your student information system person at the district level to make sure that your courses are reflecting the appropriate course designators so that our college partners have clarity on what the student took. I'm not sure if that answered the question though. Can you just read that question again real quick, Jana? I'm not sure if I answered it.
It's no longer available to view.
Oh. Okay.
If Megan hops back on, we'll see if she remembers it. But
Okay,
I'll
if not, maybe
continue
that
on.
person can offer a clarification in the Q&A if we didn't answer it right.
That'd be great. Along the lines of Running Start AP transcripts, there's a couple questions that I'll read together as they're fairly similar. The first one is, do you consider Running Start classes to be as challenging as IB Cambridge AP? That question happens a lot from, or comes in a lot from parents and students. And then the other piece of the question that follows it, do you rather see Running Start or AP honors classes in the transcript? Is there a preference? Which I know we touched on a little bit earlier.
If you have a preference, maybe speak up, but I have a hunch that no one has an actual preference.
I was just going to say one thing about Running Start is that encompasses like so many different courses, right? So, you know, if we're comparing like a calculus course versus a calculus course, then yeah, there's no preference for what we have. But if we're talking a PE Running Start course versus a calculus course, then yes, it's going to make a difference. So just wanted to provide that clarity.
I do want to say that I think with Running Start, it's actually sometimes harder in some ways because it goes faster and you're going through so much content in such a small amount of time, and some high school students are ready for that and some aren't. And it is a permanent grade on their college transcript. So I think those are just things that sometimes students think we see it as not as hard, whereas sometimes I think it's actually the harder choice for some students. So I think there's just some rumors and misinformation that's out there amongst families.
What we hope to clarify with the dual credit tool that we're hoping to post pretty soon here is, and this is for the Washington Public Four-Year institutions, is that we don't, as you saw from our institutions, we don't have a preference. What we're most focused on is student fit. And students need to progress to make sure that they are doing the most rigorous high school curriculum for them and to align that with their educational goals. And you know your students, their parents know their students, sometimes students know themselves better. And there are students who will excel in a college learning environment and Running Start's right up their alley. There are students who still need to be on a high school campus and may want to look at an AP course. So it is, what we want students to do is make sure, what we value about dual credit is that it provides for exploration, experience, and there's another E, but I can't remember what that E is. Sorry about that. I'll get my 3 E's down for Thursday, so come back, I guess. But the thing is that it is really helping students gauge what they want to do and how they're ready and how they're not, and what maybe explore or experience, because it is a transition. It's a big transition, regardless of what institution what degree they do. And so we really want students to have those experiences. And we want students to just take the coursework for any of the dual credit, that we see better, we see increase in direct enrollment in post-secondary education. So it's really, we really want you to focus on the student fit, because we want to make sure that that first experience with anything post-secondary is successful, and that student's building that confidence and the skill sets for them to then build onto that to be successful coming into our institutions.
Excellent. Colleges, do you ever see an S on a transcript? And if so, how typical is it that you see an S, as in Sam or Samantha?
As an S as the actual grade?
Yes, that's what was typed.
I suppose if it's a satisfactory, not satisfactory grading system, I think we would treat it the same as pass, fail. Is that kind of what most would do? Yeah, so we would not calculate it into the GPA in any way, but if you've given them credit, if the school has given them credit, we would honor the high school credit for that. College credit, we would need the official college transcript, and some of the colleges are giving S, I don't know if it's an NS, not satisfactory, but some colleges do grade with an S, and we just consider that the same as a pass.
And I would add to that it might be helpful just to have context. If it's like one grade, you know, there are a whole bunch of letter grades on a transcript and then there's an S, you might wonder, okay, well, you know, maybe what happened that's different there. So any kind of context that the counselor can give us, or any kind of context the student can give us in those sections that we've mentioned before, that would be really helpful.
Erin from WSU Vancouver, anything to add?
No, that sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Next question around AP. Follow up to the AP question earlier, especially with holistic review. Does it change if the student has a 4.0 versus a 3.5?
Should I respond to that, since I think I made the comment about it depends on grade, you know, where things are in the grades. I don't think, so a 4.0, but has still just taken general classes. And so then we're going to look at that as, okay, great grades, did really well in the courses that they took, but maybe didn't challenge themselves as well as they could, of course, compared to what's offered at their school. And then someone who has a 3.5 and who's taken AP courses and throughout and has continued to challenge themselves, they're going to do really well in our curriculum assessment, and also quite well in the GPA assessment too. So I think that the student with the 3.5 and the better curriculum is probably going to do better in terms of merit scholarship. Likely in that situation, they might even both, you know, be admitted depending upon major and such. But I would say that, you know, the student with the better curriculum and then solid, strong GPA is still going to do very well. In fact, probably better as far as merit scholarship goes.
I think the only thing I would add is just that, look, we get these questions all the time. If X or Y, then what is this chance and what likelihood? And the reality is, and someone even posted, you know, that we keep talking about holistic review, and that's really difficult to tell the parents. And you're right, it's really difficult because it's not one variable that's going to make a difference. And a 3.5 versus 4.0, I don't have enough information. I need to know how many AP classes. I need to know, what does the senior year schedule look like? I mean, there's just so many other factors that go into it that it does make this topic really difficult to talk about. And it's not as transparent as saying X GPA and X test score and you're in or out. So I'm sorry, we can't give better or more clear information. It's super vague. It's gray. That's the area that we work in when we're talking about holistic review.
And I would add too, and we were just going back to that conversation about merit awards, when we're skewing away from the test scores, for Central at least, the difference between a 3.5 and a 4 would make a difference in their ability to get merit awards. So it doesn't make a difference in terms of admission per se, but it could make a difference in the scholarship side of things.
I do want to put one thing out. You can search a school and their acceptance rate in Google, and it just spits a percentage back to you. And the majority of Washington colleges that are competitive in admission do admit over 60% of their applicants, with most of us actually admitting over 70%. And I think sometimes students would be surprised to know that. They get so caught up in some of these things. Now, yes, not everyone gets a merit scholarship who's admitted, so that's a different conversation. But I encourage your students to do that. School acceptance rate in Google. It's actually a really interesting activity.
I wanted to add real quick, I think since most of us are doing holistic review, our universal answer is probably going to be, it depends.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. So our next question, and this one's a tough one as well, I think, for those of us who have read a gazillion, million, thousands upon thousands of essays. So there are topics that students are often encouraged to not write about. So are there topics, things like divorce, trips, my brain went straight to Mission to Mexico when I saw the word trips, sports. Is COVID a topic we should steer students from writing about? Does everyone remember the Harry Potter phase too? So, okay. Anyway, so does anyone want to tackle that? Are there topics that we should encourage students not to write about?
Can you guys hear me? Oh, sorry. Did someone jump in? For me, I don't know where you got that idea that those are bad topics to write about. I don't think there are bad topics. There is a way to write about those topics that I've read a million times. And then there's a way to write about those topics that's unique to the student and helps me get to know the student better and understand their individual story. Honestly, short of admitting that they're a serial killer, I don't think there is a bad topic, COVID included. I do anticipate that this year there will be a lot of COVID-related essays, but it's a global trauma that we're all experiencing, and I think we'll all relate to it and fully understand. Really what I'm trying to get out of an essay is, can the student put sentences together and write and proofread them for themselves? But also, tell me their story, get to know about them, know how they're going to be contributing to campus and how they're prepared for college.
I definitely agree with that. Like when I'm reading an essay, I can tell right away when it's a student writing something that they think I want to read. So definitely steering away from like, oh, what do admissions want to read? It's more of like, what is the student passionate about? What can they write about well that shows us their writing skills, grammar and all of that, and seeing if they're ready at the, writing a professional college level kind of essay. But just as Ruth mentioned, all of that as well.
I would just add that since the Common App and the Coalition app has a separate section for students to discuss COVID specifically, I would encourage students to write about something else just so we can get to know them more. So if there's some other passion point or thing that we should know about them that makes them stand out, then their whole essay isn't focused on COVID plus another section around COVID. It just allows the student to give us a little extra something about them.
Excellent, thanks you guys. And I just want to make a comment, writing about missions to Mexico is not a bad thing. We all often see waves of popular topics. And so my joke about Harry Potter, there really was like probably 3 years where we read a lot of how Harry Potter encouraged students to love reading. And so it's very common for us to see waves of popular topics. It is part of the job. So I just wanted to clarify on that. Thanks.
All right, our next question is, if the out-of-country students are refugees, does that change the out-of-country transcript requirement?
I can take that because we have a lot of students with out-of-country transcripts. And so we will often have students, they'll get the request that says, hey, we need your official high school transcripts translated from blank country. And sometimes they're like, I can't get that. And so we actually have a credential specialist in our office who her job is to help students know if they can get it, how they can get it, what the form is actually called, and to help them ask properly and know how to ask to get those official documents. If truly they are not able to get official documents, then our credential specialist will work with them to make sure that we have the most accurate academic record for their admission consideration to UW-Tacoma. Okay, I guess that was a good answer. Next question, and this I think actually lines up nicely with what we were just speaking about. Do ELL students need to document their world language skills, or is the ELL course on the transcript sufficient? I also have an answer for this, but I want someone else to talk.
I'll tackle it if you don't mind.
Thanks, Carl.
Even though I don't have a really good answer, unfortunately, and that is that we have struggled with some ELL students because the ELL course wasn't very specific in its description. So we didn't know if the student was able to meet the CATRs based on the way it was written on the transcript. So the way that I would answer that question and actually reach out to or ask for some help from our school communities is that when a student takes a course, it's an ELL course, if you can be very specific on what that course is, that will help us to determine whether the student is admissible.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and chime in a little bit. So speaking specifically to world language, so if a student has attended schooling outside of the US and obtained their education in a different language, we ask that question specifically on the application. And so if they state, you know, I attended blank school and I learned everything in Vietnamese, we look to see that they were attending that school and learning in that language up through 7th grade. If they have learned through 7th grade, then we automatically go, check, you meet world language as far as the CATR goes. Now, depending on the ELL courses that they took in high school, we may then connect with them about meeting English language proficiency, because often we'll run into folks not meeting the English CATR. And so then there are other means that we can support them through making sure that they're meeting either the English CATR and or meeting English language proficiency to make sure that both of those CATRs, because if you think about it, it's the CATR, world language CATR and the English CATR are being met properly. Wendy.
I'm just going to chime in and say, actually, WASAC, Washington Student Achievement Council, in the minimum admission standards for the public universities, and this lines up with what Megan was just saying, if a student enters the country grade 8 or beyond, and they've entered from a non-English speaking country, they are considered to have already met the world language requirement.
Thank you all. We have about 6-7 minutes left until we transition to closing, and quite a few questions left. So what I would like to do is ask my colleagues if you can now go into the Q&A and respond to some questions that are there. There were quite a bit of questions as far as if the Q&A transcript will be available after. We will work on providing that for you all to view at a later time. And then we'll also still continue with the remaining time we have answering some of the questions that we have here. And so a really good question I think is really helpful for our counselors. If some folks want to respond to this is, can you talk about the importance of letters of recommendation, particularly in the COVID era? How important are they, particularly letters of rec from counselors?
I can just pop in and say, we don't ask for letters of recommendation. We don't require them. for us, it's really better if there's a student that you're concerned about and that you see when you're looking at their transcript and what's on paper, and you know they have promise and potential beyond what you think we would see, I would say pick up the phone and give us a call.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. The question was, how important are letters of recommendation during COVID era, especially from counselors?
I will just add on, we do ask for a letter of recommendation, St. Martin's. I feel like it can't hurt in the application process just to get to know the student a little bit more, not just from what they present themselves as, but what others perceive them as a student and their strengths. Sometimes students will forget to mention certain things that they've been a part of. So definitely those letter of recommendations can give us an extra hand in, oh, they were club president, or, oh, they helped in this community service type of thing. So I think it's always a good thing and not necessarily like something negative associated with the application.
Okay, next question. And Julie, you might have a little insight to this because I think it was based on your comment. What are some of the most common transcript inaccuracies? Someone's curious.
I would really open this up for my students, but I think some of the most inaccuracies are lack of caters, acknowledgement of caters, lack of acknowledgement of dual credit or honors or that pathway, lack of, so the student moves around in the district, a lack of clarification of what that student took. There's not a lot of sharing, that's difficult to control. And then I those are some that come to the top of my head that I want to head up to the institutions if there's others that are more fun.
I would say that it is primarily courses that that are not listed as caters and dual credit, as Julie mentioned. And so it goes back to the designator that Kim was talking about earlier. Just really important that those courses get designated. If we don't see a designation, we'll do our best, but given the volume that some of us that all of us are dealing with, to stop and have to research that and find your curriculum guide online and then read about that, sometimes it's just we just don't have that luxury. We don't want to miss a student who has fulfilled the caters. So just looping back with your registrar, identifying, making sure that those caters, because those are the school district gets to determine the caters, and just making sure that those are identified clearly and the letter B on the transcript. And I can't remember the super secret code for the other ones right now, but college and the high school, running start, etc., AP, IB, honors. It's really helpful to have all of those things designated. It just makes it so much quicker on our end. So that's, I think, Julie, that's what you were primarily referring to. And we did an analysis a few years ago, and it was only about 30% of the schools in the state of Washington were consistently identifying all of those things.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I had great success partnering with someone in the school who called me and said, I don't understand why this student was denied, because really the student shouldn't have been denied. And it was because the caters weren't listed correctly. And we were able to work with the registrar and got it updated, and they updated it properly through the district. Then we got the updated transcript and the decision was easily flipped. So.
All right, we have time for
that last point. You know, I think we're really looking at this equity through an equity lens. It makes me wonder that student had enough agency, or that counselor had enough agency, or that family had enough agency or privilege to reach out to UW-Tacoma and say, can we reevaluate this? These students are working so hard, all of our students. And so having these transcripts to be as accurate is an equity issue, because not every student has the agency or the ability, the capital, mentor, or somebody to advocate for them and to question. And there's a lot of intimidation that students feel at that age about questioning things, and it's just part of the human developmental experience. So just really having these accurate transcripts to really reflect what these students are doing in school, because they're doing incredibly awesome things, is really important, and it's a huge equity issue so that we don't just have students who have agency or have some type of privilege, feel like they can advocate for those things. And I could tell you right now that all of our admissions folks, as you can see from Megan nodding her head, are engaged and want to help all students. And so we want to make sure that we are understanding that those students' pathways of that.
With that, I'll give the shout out to Highline High School. And it was a staff member at Highline High School who reached out. So high five, Highline.
All right, thank you all for your questions. We had over 100 questions during our 90-minute Q&A session. Thank you all to my colleagues, the panelists, for providing responses in the chats, in the Q&A, out loud, live. Really appreciate it. And next, I'd like to move into a couple of announcements. So for my colleagues, you're welcome to stay on, leave your video and audio there, or you're welcome to not. So totally up to you as we're going to move into the closing piece. But I'd like to turn it over to Mindy and Jocelyn, or just Mindy, for a PNACAC update.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I'm anticipating you're going to jump on this as well. A couple of things from PNACAC. One, I just wanted to talk about the PNACAC membership for high school counselors. It is a free membership that's available to you. If you've already had that membership, it's a renewal process that's, again, free. You just go onto the PNACAC website, and it provides access to a lot of resources, professional development opportunities, government and advocacy efforts that we all can look at. You know, if you're not familiar with PNACAC, we're one of 23 regional affiliates with the National Association for College Admission Counseling, or commonly referred to as NACAC, and it's open to all counselors and colleagues. I know from the four-year side, most all of us are involved in the regional affiliate at least, and many of us are involved at the national level as well. And then it's a 5-state region. So it's us in Alaska and Idaho, Montana, and Oregon. And then many of you probably have already been hearing, I'm hopeful that you've been hearing about our fairs that are coming up. And so Jocelyn, do you want to jump on and talk about fairs?
Sure, we've been working our tails off to take in-person events digital. And so the week of October 19th through the 22nd, we're calling it Washington Week. So we're encouraging all of you to encourage your students and families and supporters to log on to our website. I'll drop the link in the chat, but it's a great way for students to explore 144 different colleges and universities. And it's our effort to take some of that burden off your plate this year with an already super hectic, crazy, challenging time. So I think that's all I wanted to say. Mindy, anything else?
Yeah, one last thing is that for those of you in the community college side, we're usually doing the Washington Council Transfer Fair tours in the fall. Of course, those are not happening this fall as well. So we are encouraging all of the transfer students and our transfer partners to push students towards those PNACAC fairs. We've also included we've told this to anybody who has a virtual booth at the transfer fair to anticipate transfer students. We've also have a session that will be offered to community college students as well, hosted by Melanie down there from Columbia Basin College. So we're encouraging students to do that. It is National Transfer Student Week that week as well. So we're really hoping that those transfer students are accommodated too.
Awesome. Thank you, Mindy and Jocelyn. Now I'd like to turn it over to Denise with an update and information from Washington State Counselor Association.
Yeah, thank you, Jana, for the time and Washington Council for a couple of minutes. I'm going to share my screen for high school counselors. We at Washington School Counselor Association, we're going to be hosting a book study. As far as I know, this is the first time we've offered something like this. So here's the book. It's not often that we get information that's related specifically to school counseling. And so myself, our middle school vice president, our membership chair, Gretchen Steiger, the three of us will be hosting a book study with free clock hours if you're a WASCA member. This is relatively new, so all the details aren't worked out, but boy, we sure invite everybody across the state, K-12, and others, if you'd like to invest and be part of this book study with us. My particular district has agreed to purchase the books for the counselors in my district who will be participating in the book study, which is nice. You might check with if you're interested, you might check with your particular district to see if that's an option for you guys as well. So again, thanks for the time.
My computer said I was muted. Sorry, everybody. What to expect next. And I first want to say thank you to Melanie and folks at CBC and the staff there. I think I've emailed them over 100 times in the last 2 weeks for questions about Zoom. So I really appreciate the help and support there to make this workshop possible, as well as the one that will take place on Thursday as well. So we hope to see everybody in person next year, crossing fingers, but we're glad we got to connect with you this year. A couple reminders, the handbook is on the Washington Council website, so please download that, print it off, whatever you may need to help you and your students this year. Also, make sure to view all the videos that are posted. Melody, thank you, from PLU and President of Washington Council, who put that together. There are 3 playlists to help organize the videos. It's great to watch. Again, they're primarily for you as counselors and teachers, not necessarily for students, but definitely a lot of information that will answer a lot of questions that were on our Q&A list as well. So really encourage you to check that out over the next couple of days. There's contact information on there. So if you need to reach out to any of the colleges or universities, agencies, it's all there for you. This workshop is also recorded and it will be shared out in a later time so that you can view it as well as all the PowerPoints from our agencies will be a part of this recording, but also available on the Washington Council website as well as a resource. And then you should be expecting an email from me in the next few days. We're gonna finish out our second workshop, and then I'll email out all of our attendees information about the videos, the workshops, but also an email survey. We'd love to get your thoughts about how this all took place for you and your experience and viewpoints, as well as clock hour information, which will be awarded through Washington State Counselor Association. So there'll be a form attached and instructions on what to do, how to do it, and where to send it. So I'll have all of that detailed information for you. And I think that's it. So thank you everybody for your time. All of the 380 folks that joined us, as well as all of my colleagues here, for your time and attention and information. So everyone be well. Hopefully you enjoy a great rest of your afternoon. Take care.
Thank you. Jana, do you want to stay on for a hot second?